Chapter 91. After a storm comes a calm. Sial Jihu and Teresa Hussey stayed at the lake for dozens of minutes, but they knew they couldn't stay there until the end of time. Now that they had quenched their thirst and filled their canteen with water, they reluctantly left the lake. Pain still pierced their bodies with each step they took, but things were much better now that they relieved their thirst. Their steps were much lighter as they exited the forest of denial and climbed up the Maple Hill. Of course, they didn't push themselves and took periodic rests, walking both day and night, on the third night since their departure from the forest of denial. "What are you going to do first when you get back?" Teresa asked in the middle of their night march. "When I go back to Haramark." There were many things he wanted to do meeting his comrades, eating delicious food and drinking beverages until he couldn't stomach them anymore, treating his wounds, going to the temple, training once he recovered, and... Suddenly, he felt like he was forgetting something important. "In the future, when you need to go somewhere, anywhere, you give me a call first. Do you hear me?" He barely stopped himself from shouting out loud. In truth, Sial Jihu had hesitated in calling Kim Hannah before he departed for the rescue mission. Ultimately, he decided against it, knowing she would never approve of him going. He wanted to complete the mission secretly and pretend he didn't know a thing about it, but... Well, now that things had come to this, there was little to no chance that she wouldn't have found out. My back. Remembering the power of Kim Hannah's slap, Sial Jihu sighed inwardly. Teresa continued talking, not knowing what the youth was thinking. "Do you want to follow me to the royal palace?" "Royal palace?" "Yes," Sial Jihu hesitated. He figured he might live if he requested protection from the Haramark royal family. However, he soon shook his head. Setting aside whether that was possible, he couldn't stay cooped up in the royal palace forever. Like the saying, the sooner the better, he didn't want to risk 5 slaps turning into 20 just because he was afraid. "Thank you, but I think I'll report back to Carp Diem first. I have to let them know I'm alive." "Don't worry about that. We'll just invite them to the palace too." "That's fine, but actually I want to surprise them." Teresa was rather shocked. "You have quite a strange personality. Okay then, I'll summon you later." It seemed she was adamant on wanting to invite him to the palace. Sial Jihu had no reason to refuse, so he nodded his head. The grassy path they were walking on soon connected to a wide artificial road. They could then see a gray wall standing tall under the night sky. Although they were still quite a distance away from it, it was undoubtedly a castle wall. The duo stopped simultaneously. For the next few minutes, they stood still and simply stared at each other. A castle wall. Without a doubt, it was Haramark. They finally returned to Haramark. Once they entered the city safely, Sial Jihu couldn't hide his surging emotions. The roads pooling with filthy water, the old and dilapidated buildings shrouded by darkness, everything moved him. Perhaps because it was late, there were only a few people out about in the streets. Teresa and Sial Jihu crossed the streets side by side, only separating once they arrived at the plaza. They stared at each other fixedly. Were words even necessary? Teresa suddenly held out her hand. "Congratulations. It wasn't well done or you did well, but congratulations." Sial Jihu took her hand firmly. The princess's palm carried warmth that wasn't present before. "Congratulations to you too. Rest well. I'll summon you soon to the palace, so don't refuse." "Why would I?" You can look forward to it." Teresa winked. It seemed she was referring to the reward. "I wonder how much she's planning to give." Sial Jihu chuckled indifferently. He was just about to jokingly ask, "Shall I be expecting you in bed?" but quickly swallowed it back. He had to go back and rest as soon as possible, so he didn't want to get himself in trouble by making stupid, teasing remarks. After saying their farewells, the duo turned around. Teresa headed towards the palace, while Sial Jihu headed to Carp Diem's office. "Why does my body feel so heavy?" Was it because his body was no longer tense? The built-up fatigue inside him seemed to have exploded when he entered the city as his body lost strength. He used his spear as a walking cane to forcefully drag his feet forward. When a familiar building entered his sight, he began to sob. One step after the other, he trudged up the stairs before pushing the door on the brink of fainting. The door was locked. He tried to turn the doorknob again, but the door didn't budge in the slightest. Is no one here? Quang, quang. He knocked on the door, but there was no response. Could it be? A sudden thought popped up in his head. Could Cho-hong have left for the laboratory to save him? She couldn't have, right? In any case, he had no choice but to turn back. Damn it. If I knew no one was home, I would have followed the princess to the palace. A belated regret set in. Seol Jihu grumbled inwardly, and after walking down the stairs, he let out a sigh and looked up at the sky. His eyes caught sight of the building on the other side of Karp Deem's office. I guess it finished. He became curious who moved in, but that only lasted for a moment. He smacked his lips and turned around. Now that things had come to this, he only had one other place to go. Soon, Seol Jihu arrived at Luxuria's temple after an arduous walk and dragged his feet inside with great difficulty. The woman dozing off at the reception desk opened her eyes. When her sleepy eyes caught sight of the youth leaning against a blue spear, her eyes widened in surprise. He barely managed to eke out his next words. I'm looking for a treatment. Seol Jihu was almost chased out because he threw off his gown completely when the female priest asked him to show her his wounds, causing her to scream. Thankfully, she stopped screaming in 5 seconds, and after noticing the gravity of the wounds on his body, she hurriedly called for better priests. After being escorted to the emergency treatment room, Seol Jihu maintained his sanity as he was hit with a barrage of questions. He got to lay down on a comfortable bed for the first time in a long while, but his brain refused to let him fall asleep so easily. The several-day-long pursuit had made his body used to sleeping outside. Of course, the unnecessarily loud treatment room also had something to do with it. Spray more healing water, backside. His wounds are at least 7 days old, we'll try massive. Wait, his left shoulder and thigh are, what the hell, what happened to him? It looks like he received emergency treatment. Seol Jihu let out a hollow chuckle. The way everyone was running about shouting made him feel like he was at a real ER room. Are my wounds that bad? At that moment, the talking in the room suddenly ceased. Seol Jihu was looking at the ceiling with narrowed eyes, but when the room suddenly fell silent, he tilted his head to the side. Is the treatment over? Now that he thought about it, he had been feeling like someone was staring at him since a while ago. I can't believe this, really. What? Who is that? He could barely catch a glimpse of a figure. Why, I might be half dead, but I came back alive, didn't I? While he was feeling somewhat sad, he spotted a strapless priest robe that looked just like a white dress along with long, ebony-colored hair. Chung Cho-hong, no, Chung Cho-hong didn't dress like that. For some reason, Seol Jihu felt as if he'd seen that robe before. Meanie, I was so worried. Her voice grew faint. Seol Jihu strained his ears to listen to her mumbles. It was then that a hand gently touched his forehead. He might have been mistaken, but the hand seemed to be trembling intensely. Soon, cure critical wounds. A familiar voice rang out, "Pat," and his vision flashed white. The erupting light shot out of the room and even dyed the hallway white. Watching this scene, Seol Jihu couldn't hide his shock. He had never seen such a beautiful, brilliant light before. Soon, he closed his eyes, feeling the light seep into every corner of his body. His flickering consciousness finally cut off. After days of staying alert, his brain finally fell asleep. Seol Jihu left his body to the drowsiness flooding in. His sleeping face displayed a smile happier than anyone else in the world. That morning, the Haramark royal family made an unprecedented official announcement. The content of the announcement was the return of Seol and Teresa Hussey that morning. With this, every member who participated in the rescue mission had returned alive. The Haramark royal family added a few more details. The first was that the duo cooperated with the Federation during their escape. The second was that they destroyed the Delphinian Duchy's laboratory, the headquarters of the parasite's mass production facility. The last was that they had successfully returned after breaking through the parasite's increased encirclement. It was an added bonus that the parasite's plans had been foiled and their forces severely cut down in size. The news. Hey, Cho-hong, Cho-hu-woong. Oh, old man, what's the fuss about? Did you drink this early in the morning? Where? No, just come back, hurry. What is it? I already told you I have to. Sial is back. Sial is back. What? Not only spread in Haramark. What about the Temple of Luxuria? Didn't that damn Ice Queen say she'll find him no matter what? She even said she would become active again if he was found. Yes, lady, we're looking into the matter. It seems to be true that he survived with his own strength. After all, the Order of Luxuria was still in their preparation stage and never left Haramark. What an interesting turn of events. What was the man's name again? It's Sial. Ah, speaking of which, I heard rather interesting pieces of news today. Interesting news. That youth named Sial, it appears that the daughter of Luxuria is personally taking care of him. But also in Scheherazade and other kingdoms. In less than a day, the news of his feats traveled far and wide, reaching even the lands of the Federation and the parasites. However, the talk of the world was ZZZ, currently wandering about in his dreamland. Even after sleeping for a whole day, he didn't show signs of waking up. Once his sleep-deprived body tasted genuine sleep, it desired it endlessly. Sial Jihu was currently feeling very happy with himself. He didn't know why, but there was a soft warmth constantly embracing his body. No, that wasn't enough to describe this sensation. It was cozy, relaxing, purifying. If there was an essence of warmth in the world, he firmly believed this had to be it. Plus, although it sometimes made him stifled for breath, there was also something tender and squishy. This unbelievably soft and elastic thing also packed quite a size. Every time Sial Jihu buried his face in this softness, an unknown comfort and kindness entered his brain. This is happiness. He became languid, so much so that he thought it would be okay to die like this. Even when he woke up, he immediately fell back asleep from the coziness. That wasn't all. Here. The light was only scary at first. It grew gentler as time went by, and more importantly, there were times that it talked to him in his dreams like a real human being. He just did as he was told, and delicious food would enter his mouth. It smells amazing. Is it porridge? Sial Jihu sniffed repeatedly and opened his mouth like a baby waiting to be fed. As expected, a warm porridge gently entered his mouth. Sial Jihu still believed he was dreaming as he gulped down. Delicious, delicious. However, he never let his guard down. There were times when a bitter smell would be mixed in with the food. As soon as he sensed it, he would shut his mouth instantly. It didn't matter whether he was eating delicious food before, just like now. Hey, the light was taken aback. How did you know it was medicine? With this, Sial Jihu became sure. He was thankful to the person taking care of him, but he hated medicine. Come on, you have to eat this after your meal. Don't be like that. Do you know how precious this herb is? Be good, okay? Come on. Say Sial Jihu kept his mouth shut in protest, but the voice constantly persuaded him. Eventually, he gave in to the gentle pressure and opened his mouth. The man-child grimaced. After barely managing to feed him the medicine, the mysterious person let out a deep sigh. Really, when are you going to grow up? He could hear the voice say something, but he was sleepy now that he ate something. After taking a big yawn, Sial Jihu dug into the warmth. He never imagined that someone stroking his hair and patting his back could feel so good. This is happiness. Like the saying, after the storm comes a calm, Sial Jihu thoroughly enjoyed the blissful life he now had. Of course, he had no way of knowing what was going on in the outside world, Seoul, Sineung Pharmaceuticals headquarters. Yes, today at 6:25 p.m. Yes, I understand. Click. The sound of a phone hanging up could be heard. Kim Hannah had an odd expression as she looked down at the office phone on her desk. Sial Jihu. She had found out long ago that he joined the rescue mission without telling her. Of course, it was already too late to stop him then. She just received the report that he had returned alive. Because she had an urgent matter to take care of on Earth, the news of Sial Jihu's return had reached her late. In any case, she was relieved to hear that he came back alive. Right, she was relieved. You. Kim Hannah covered her face with her hands. You motherfucking son of a bitch. He was already garnering unnecessary attention due to his golden mark, but the problem he caused this time was too great for anyone to ignore. This matter was on an entirely different scale compared to the defense of the Arden Fortress. As it would affect the whole of paradise, there was no way his name wouldn't spread. It was already well beyond Kim Hannah's capabilities to deal with alone. Although Seol Jihu was still oblivious, paradise wasn't a simple world. As Earthlings could use achievement points to bring Paradise's items back to Earth, countless interest groups were battling it out in chaos. There was a reason Paradise housed large, violent organizations from Earth. If one got unlucky, he would have to be careful not only in Paradise but also on Earth. Kim Hannah had just received a call from her secretary, telling her that the First Lady wanted to see her. Kim Hannah could only come up with one reason that Pervert would suddenly want to see her. Who? Kim Hannah slapped her cheeks in despair. It was a stroke of fortune, no, a stroke of miracle from the heavens that the daughter of Luxuria was taking care of Seol Jihu. Seo Yuhui was undoubtedly one of the most influential Earthlings in Paradise. Although she retired from her position a long time ago, her abilities, fame, influence, and organization did not go anywhere. She would be able to become a stronger shield than any other Earthling. Kim Hannah breathed a sigh of relief when she found out Seo Yuhui volunteered to help herself. At the same time, she couldn't help but wonder, why is she protecting Seol Jihu? Kim Hannah was positive the two had no prior connections. There was no one named Seo Yuhui among Seol Jihu's network of friends, family, and acquaintances. In fact, Seo Yuhui was a woman wrapped in a veil of mystery. Practically no one knew her identity on Earth. Is she trying to raise him? That was certainly possible. Of the acclaimed Earthlings playing an active part in Paradise's conflicts, more than a few had crossed her hands. After all, even that Sung Shihyun was her work. Thinking about it this way, Kim Hannah could begin to understand. Of course, she had too many things on her plate at the moment to think too deeply into it. For now, she decided to focus on the problems at hand. I'll need to pull the plan forward. But before that, there was something she needed to do. Bastard, just wait until I see you again. Her eyes flickered with a cold, grim light. I'll show you. Chapter 92. Addiction. One could say that an organization was a societal group in which people gathered under the banner of achieving a common goal. Members of an organization understood each other through frequent interactions and gave their effort in accomplishing a shared goal. Such organizations prioritized profit the most, and given the unique nature of Paradise, different groups were called different things. One thing to note was that a group's name did not reflect its power in any way. Usually, the number of organization members determined its title. Small-scale or independent organizations were called teams, groups, crews, societies, or associations, while mid- and large-scale organizations were called alliances, guilds, unions, or companies. Put this way, Paradise's temple was also an organization. The Temple of Luxuria was an organization of priests who served the goddess of lust. Described in more detail, this organization once held the biggest influence in all of Paradise. Of course, this was all a glory of the past. That was when both Seo Yuhui and Sung Shihyun were active. To be precise, the Temple of Luxuria was at the height of its glory before these two executors split up after a falling out. Sung Shihyun left for Sinyang after this incident, and Seo Yuhui announced her retirement from Paradise. Naturally, the Temple of Luxuria's influence plummeted. But just like the saying, an old eagle is better than a young crow, the Temple of Luxuria still could not be looked down upon. Given its nature as a temple, there was no need to worry it would fail either. It was just that its current influence was lacking compared to when it was led by two executors. Naturally, priests who could not forget the past glory constantly sought out to revitalize the group. For example, today, a level 6 bishop wearing a mitre visited Haramark's Temple of Luxuria for this exact reason. Please help. He knelt on the ground. He knew very well that the person he was talking to would feel bothered by his actions. The bishop's status wasn't so low as to kneel so frivolously, and he definitely wasn't the type to enjoy such indignant actions. In fact, he was someone who liked to flaunt his authority. However, the woman in front of him was more than worthy enough for him to endure minor humiliations such as this. The order's caste system is breaking down. Please return to guide us, executor. No, a gentle voice cut him off. I will not return to the Order of Luxuria." She sounded firm, as if there was no room for negotiations. However, the mitre-wearing man didn't back down. "Didn't you promise that you would return if we make an expedition to the Delphinian Duchy's laboratory?" "I certainly did," the woman retorted clearly. "But the expedition is no longer needed. The laboratory has been destroyed completely, and all members of the rescue team returned alive. The Order never set out on the expedition, yet you're asking me to keep my side of the promise." Her logical response put the man at a loss of words. The woman was well known for keeping every promise she made. As someone who had watched her for a long time, the bishop knew that better than anyone else. He had prodded her just to be sure, only to end up being put into his place. "Miss C.O. Yuhui, you may have resigned from your position as an executor, but you know that goddess Luxuria has not allowed it." "You are mistaken. She allowed me." "But don't you still possess the apostles' authorities? I'm sure you know what that means." "I made my intentions clear." "You are better off asking her personally if you are curious why she has not taken the authorities away." "Please, our Order and Lord Luxuria are both rejoicing at the news of your return. If you're an Earthling, I'm sure you know about how contracts are made within Paradise." "I am also just another Earthling." Hearing C.O. Yuhui's unyielding position on the matter, the bishop stared at the floor and bit his lower lips. It had been a long time since he experienced her iciness. C.O. Yuhui was known as the Ice Queen within Paradise precisely because no man had ever succeeded in wooing her, including the famous Sung Shihyun. But having served by C.O. Yuhui's side for a long time, the bishop knew that wasn't all there was to it. Although C.O. Yuhui was benevolent and generous, she never approached someone beyond what was necessary, and didn't allow anyone to approach her beyond what was necessary. This didn't apply to only her romantic life, but all facets of it. A man lured in by her outer magnanimity would surely run into her iciness one day. Although most knew they stood little chance, they remained hopeful that they might just melt her heart. "We have long fallen out of our relationship with the Temple of Gyula. Now that you are no longer with us, the number of deserters is increasing by the day." "I don't think it's proper to call them deserters. Besides, I was never happy with the way the Order exerted influence on other organizations by using the priest's rare healing capabilities and its unique status as a temple. But you must know why that was necessary. Even now, outside organizations are trying to steal our priests away with sweet talk. Some are even using them to interfere in our internal affairs." C.O. Yuhui didn't say anything in response. The temperature of the room suddenly plummeted. The bishop must have been pressured by C.O. Yuhui's cold gaze as he dropped his head until his mitre almost touched the ground. After staying silent for a long time, C.O. Yuhui finally opened her mouth. "That's quite a problem, isn't it?" Flinch. The man trembled. His heart skipped a beat. "Could it be? But that has nothing to do with me." C.O. Yuhui quickly put down any hopeful thoughts in the bishop's head. "I have already left the Order. In a way, I guess I am also an outsider." "Pardon? So it is none of my business what the Temple of Luxuria is up to or how it is faring. Are you truly saying you will abandon the Order and remain a bystander?" "Yes, and one more thing," C.O. Yuhui replied without a moment of hesitation. "What we talked about today, you can make it public." Her words caused the bishop to blink his eyes in shock. "I'll repeat one more time. What we talked about today, you can use it however you want. I don't mind." "What do you mean?" The bishop was about to raise his head and ask, but froze stiff on the spot. What? Cold sweat flowed down his back. The woman who was modestly sitting on the couch was now in front of him. C.O. Yuhui leisurely reached out her arm, took off the bishop's mitre, and carefully brought it to her eyes. So, she studied the shining jewel decorating the center of the mitre. "Please, don't bother me any more than this, Miss Yun C.O. Huey." She gave a refreshing smile. "PZZT." The jewel's light flickered off. This meant one of two things: the other side had either severed the connection or destroyed the crystal. Of course, both C.O. Yuhui and the bishop knew it was the latter. After a moment of silence, the bishop revealed his teeth. "You knew." "I noticed that you changed the mitre's jewel. I know you aren't the type to change something like that so easily." "Ho, with just that. Whether it be liquor, clothes, or friends, you always say you prefer old ones. Sioyuhui placed the mitre back on the bishop's head before returning to her couch. She then continued, "Go back." With just those two words, the bishop knew that the thin thread of connection they still shared was cut off. He had nothing to say and could only stand up helplessly. "Do you not blame me?" "I don't want to. I understand where you're coming from, after all." "I see." Rather than being devoured bit by bit, it might indeed be better to join hands with Sinyoung. So she knew everything. The bishop let out a bitter chuckle. "I know I am in no position to say this, but please, I would be eternally grateful if you came back. My answer is the same no matter how many times you ask me." Sioyuhui never lost her gentle smile from the beginning to end of this conversation. In the end, the bishop sighed dejectedly and turned around to leave. It was then, click, the door clicked open. The bishop looked up reflexively and saw a youth trudging into the room. His face was full of drowsiness. His eyes were barely open, and judging from the way he looked around in a daze, it seemed the youth had woken up only a moment ago. The youth was walking half asleep, but he didn't look like he was sleeping walking. After appearing out of the blue and looking around the room, the youth's gaze suddenly landed in one place. "This is?" the bishop asked belatedly, but his word immediately came to a stop. Tap, 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 tap. Like a baby with some sort of a sensor on his hands, the youth quickly crawled to his target. Once he reached the couch, he buried his face in Sioyuhui's laps. "Oh," Sioyuhui, who had been watching the youth in a daze, muttered out in surprise. "What?" The bishop was even more shocked. He had never seen Sioyuhui allow someone to approach her so easily, not even once. "Geez, again?" Sioyuhui made a troubled expression then. "I told you to sleep quietly, Ehyu." She clicked her tongue and gently stroked the youth's hair. She seemed to be at a loss for what to do, yet she was clearly patting him willingly. Seeing the youth rub his cheek on her thighs with a happy smile, the bishop was shocked once again. Not only did Sioyuhui allow him to approach her, but she even let him touch her. Impossible. He almost wanted to scream out, "That's blasphemy." He began to doubt whether the woman in front of him was the ice queen he knew. "Ah, this is my fault." Sioyuhui must have seen the bishop's culture-shocked face as she heaved out a deep sigh. "It's Miss Sioyuhui's fault. Yes, I spoiled him a bit too much and he developed a habit." Sioyuhui mumbled in embarrassment. "Excuse us." She got up from the couch as if the situation couldn't be helped. "Come on, let's go back to your room. Hurry." Drag, drag. The youth was dragged out of the room, his arms still interlinked around Sioyuhui's waist as he made his exit. The bishop stood still for a long time without moving a single muscle. Chohong had headed to the border region for Sealjihu. She shook off countless voices holding her back and ran to the border, but she had no intention of jumping in recklessly. It was just that Chohong had baseless confidence that Sealjihu was alive. She was planning on patrolling the border region in case she might be of help in his escape. If she didn't do at least this, she felt like she would regret it for the rest of her life. However, she received news of Sealjihu's return less than a day after her departure. Immediately, she turned her carriage around. As soon as she arrived in Haramark, she ran to Luxuria's temple. She grabbed the earthling working as the reception lady by her collar and strangled Sealjihu's whereabouts out of her. As soon as she kicked the door open and burst into the room he was staying in, she could see the youth sitting on a bed. She studied him carefully, and indeed it really was him. She panted to catch her breath. "You?" But her mouth automatically closed in the next moment. She had many things she wanted to say to him, but her mouth refused to open now that he was in front of her. She was both happy and sad. A part of her even wanted to beat him to a pulp. It was a strange, confusing feeling. Say something. After exchanging glances for a long time, Chohong finally spoke up. "What are you looking at? You forgot my face in just a week." She spoke curtly out of embarrassment, but Sealjihu showed signs of being confused and taken aback. He stammered a bit before quietly muttering. "Who are you?" "What?" Chohong's brows twitched. "Who are you, you said? Are you mad? Is there a problem with your brain?" Sealjihu then put on a dejected look. "Yes. What?" I recently got into a huge accident. I can't remember anything because of it." He can't remember anything. Cho Hong's eyes trembled noticeably. Why, you piece of shit? You're just messing with me again, aren't you? She shouted angrily, but her voice of shaking. Her heart began to pound as a sense of unease crept up inside her. The way Seol Jihu massaged his temples really made him look like he was confused. By any chance, do you know me? When he carefully asked her this, Cho Hong's legs almost gave in. You? She suddenly remembered the moment before their attempted escape. Seol Jihu had desperately reached out with his arm even after he collapsed on the ground. That moment haunted her every night. Why couldn't she have grabbed his hand? She couldn't remember how wrought with guilt she was. You really don't remember? I'm not sure. Everything is just a mess. Cho Hong collected her breath. She couldn't believe it. No, she didn't want to believe it. She walked up to him step by step. What about Dylan? Dylan and Hugo? Hugo? What about Carp Deem, Samuel, Alex, Ian? What about Teresa and the Forest of Denial, the Ramen Village? Cho Hong spat out every keyword she could think of, but her shock only grew bigger. You really forgot everything? You don't remember even a single name. That can't be right, right? She was practically pleading with him now. Hearing how desperate she sounded, Seol Jihu dropped his head. I'm sorry. When she saw Seol Jihu apologizing for doing nothing wrong, her heart sank. Why are you apologizing, you idiot? The edges of her eyes turned red, and Cho Hong sniffled quietly. I should be the one who's sorry. At that moment, the youth suddenly brought his head closer to Cho Hong's. Now that I think about it, why you remember? Seol Jihu stared at her intently and furrowed his brows. Then he spoke. I think I'm kidding. What? I'm kidding. Kidding. Cho Hong's complexion flattened in a daze. Yeah. Seol Jihu grinned mischievously and added, This is called tricking Cho Hong again. It was then. Quang, a sudden explosive sound erupted in the treatment room. Seol Jihu's jaw dropped open. Cho Hong's punch had broken the drawer next to the bed. You. Tremble. Her throat trembled as her eyes flickered with a cold gleam. Seol Jihu could even sense a murderous intent rising up in the air. It didn't take long for him to come to the conclusion that he had screwed up. Sorry. He immediately brought his hands together and apologized. You son of a bitch, you toyed with me. Sorry, I won't do it ever again. Believe me. You motherfucking piece of shit. Do you know how much I was worried, Cuke? When tears burst out from Cho Hong's deathly glare, Seol Jihu felt his heart drop a beat in terror. Cho Hong, I'm really sorry. I went overboard with my joke. Fuck off. Cho Hong spat out a curse and turned around angrily. Seol Jihu quickly hugged her back. Don't go. I told you to fuck off. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm not going to say it again, you bastard. Cho Hong twisted her body to free herself, but Seol Jihu clung onto her as if his life depended on it. In truth, Cho Hong could have easily shaken him off, but she couldn't do so since she knew he was injured. Soon, after he barely managed to drag Cho Hong to the bed, he rubbed his palms together and begged for forgiveness. He had no excuses to offer, and after putting himself in her shoes, he truly felt apologetic. As he was listening to Cho Hong's endless cursing, the sound of the door opening rang out. Cho Hong, who couldn't bring herself to hit him and could only yell at him angrily, furrowed her brows. It's quite noisy in here. What are you two doing hugging each other? Two women entered the room, each carrying a basket in their hands. The first wore a maid outfit while the other only had a simple white t-shirt. Miss Maria, Miss Agnes, the unexpected guests surprised Seol Jihu, yet he welcomed them nonetheless. What? Why are you here? Cho Hong asked with a confused expression. Obviously because we heard we could visit him now. He apparently fully regained consciousness today. Today? No, so why are you here? What do you mean why? We're here to wish him a quick recovery. Maria retorted as if she was asked the stupidest question in the world. You came to wish him a quick recovery? You, Maria Uriel? He came to my place too when I wasn't well. I'm just repaying the debt. Maria returned a concise answer and gently placed the basket down. I'm here to see my disciple. No one asked, but Agnes also mentioned her terrible excuse for coming to visit. Would you like some fruits? Yes. Who the hell cares about fruits? I brought some liquor, so let's have a party. Are you mad? You're trying to get a patient to drink hard liquor. Maria nodded her head at Cho Hong, shouting. Your dumbass brain makes sense for once, but still, I'm sure it's fine if... Ah, get your hands off the basket. I didn't bring it for you to shove it down your throat. Leave me be, I need some liquor in my system. Otherwise, I'm going to explode from anger because of that bastard. Maria and Chohong bickered as usual, and Agnes calmly peeled fruits on the side. Seol Jihu never expected Maria and Agnes to both come visit him. However, those two weren't the only guests. In fact, they were just the beginning. Thud, a black man kicked the door open just like Chohong. He stomped into the room and immediately embraced Seol Jihu. Seol, Siuwul. Who, Hugo? You're alive, you're alive. Wait, I can't breathe, starting with Hugo. Hey, Seol. I heard the news, here. Congrats on making it back alive. Mikhail and Veronica came. You really were alive. Mr. Kazuki, you're here too? You were a member of my team, although it was only for one mission. I need to thank you too. Ah, take this. Ainz Kazuki came. Oops, are we late? Why do you look so surprised? I missed you so much. And even Ian and Teresa came. The treatment room quickly became rowdy. The room was already small. Now that it held 10 people in it, it was filled to the brim. Wow, Seol Jihu felt a bit lightheaded. Do I really deserve this? Frankly, he was dumbfounded. At the same time, a big grin emerged on his face when he thought they all came to see him. He tried to hold back his joy, but his mouth refused to listen. Ha. In the end, joyous laughter escaped his mouth. Chohong grumbled, asking what the hell he was laughing about, but his laughter continued without stopping. This is fun. He didn't know why, but Seol Jihu found this moment surrounded by people happy. He was so happy that he wanted time to stop. It was to the point that he didn't want to go back to Earth. Chapter 93. Addiction 2. While the treatment room was bustling with visitors, Ainz Kazuki stayed silent with his back leaning against the wall. It's quite loud here, huh? He found the situation quite rowdy, but he was surprised at the same time. I heard he was a level 2 warrior. Almost everyone in the room was a well-known Earthling. Seeing how they all came to wish the youth a speedy recovery, Ainz Kazuki could easily guess they had some sort of a connection with him. In other words, these people were friends, if not acquaintances, of the Earthling known as Seol. HM. Just as he turned around thinking it was time for him to leave, he caught sight of a woman peeking into the room through the half-open gap behind the door. That's... Kazuki was shocked inwardly, but tilted his head at the same time. The woman was staring at one particular man in the room. Her eyes were fixed on him somewhat uncomfortably. Rather than being sad, she looked more worried. Who is she looking at? Following the woman's line of sight, Kazuki turned his gaze, which landed on the youth sitting on the bed. The youth was talking with a bright smile while occasionally bursting out into a hearty laughter. He said he was fully recovered, and he seemed fine mentally as well. Looks like there aren't any lasting effects. Kazuki turned back to the door and his gaze met the woman's. Kazuki quickly unfolded his crossed arms and respectfully bowed. The woman smiled gently and bowed back before turning around. Ainz Kazuki was the first to leave. Following him, the visitors began to return one by one. Seol Jihu's safe return was something to celebrate, but it was hard to see it as a perfectly happy ending. The loss of the level 5 arch shooter, Edward Dillon, was a cold, harsh reality. Losing the leader of a team was a matter of serious consequences, especially if that leader was a high ranker. It was no different than losing the captain of a ship mid-voyage. It was an undeniable fact that Carp Diem would no longer hold the position it used to. After all, no one was insane enough to entrust an important mission to a team with only 3 warriors. As visitors purposefully took their leave, the treatment room was eventually left with just 3 people. Once the commotion died down and silence descended on the room, Seol Jihu was left feeling a bit bitter. He couldn't help but think how happier he would be if Dillon was here with the rest. Why are you so depressed? Chohong must not have liked how he was acting as she shouted with a displeased look. Raise your shoulders, open your chest. The mission was a success. We rescued 3 people and saved 3 others. You even screwed the parasite's plans big time. Do you know how big of a wave you caused in paradise? She's right, Seol. There's no reason for you to feel guilty. No, you should be proud. Dillon would have surely said the same thing. Hugo also chimed in. Dylan. Seol Jihu carefully raised his voice after listening quietly for a bit. He's doing well, right? If you're talking about the penalty, well. Hugo scratched his nose. It's not easy. The sense of emptiness and loss you feel when you lose your memories of paradise is something that's hard to deal with for most. Then. But if it's him, I'm sure he will be able to overcome all difficulties. I trust Dylan. Hugo continued with a firm voice. What's important is that Dylan returned to Earth as a human. We should focus on that. Hugo's words touched Seol Jihu. He really did wish Dylan would be able to overcome the infamous penalty. No, he was certain Dylan would be able to overcome it. Seol Jihu clenched his fists. A moment of silence ensued before Chohong opened her mouth. What are you going to do from now? Seol Jihu was slightly taken aback. Was she talking about the future of Carpe Diem? He wanted to ask her about that himself. He never expected her to be the one to ask that question. Hugo and I are going to return to Earth for now. Chohong continued. We're, well, a bit exhausted. We want to rest easy, and we also need some time to organize our thoughts. Are you disbanding Carpe Diem? What are you talking about? Chohong snorted and waved her hand. I'm just saying we should rest since we just completed a huge mission. Don't jump the gun. Thankfully, it seemed Chohong had no plans to disband Carpe Diem. That was enough. Seol Jihu internally heaved out a sigh of relief. Oh, also, I need to tell you something. Hugo, who had his hand in the basket, suddenly spoke as if he just remembered something. Miss Foxy wanted us to pass you a message. She said you should come to Earth when you're awake. Miss Foxy, you mean Kim Hannah? Seol Jihu asked in surprise. Yep, I was surprised too. Who knew you were contracted to Sinyang? No, I'm not. You're not? No, they did ask me to, but I refused. Kim Hannah and I just have a personal contract between us. You refused, and you signed a contract with Miss Foxy? Yeah. Hugo's eyes widened in surprise. Then his hands started moving again. He took out a well-ripened fruit and muttered in admiration. Wow, I can't believe you refused Sinyang. Ah, well, I guess you are a gold mark. Crunch. He bit down on the fruit and began snickering. Still, I was really surprised. Why, did she say something? No, not that. Kick. Don't take this the wrong way, but how come all the women in your life are crazies? What does that mean? Chohong must have been curious too. Hugo continued to snicker as he pointed at Chohong with his chin. I mean, you have 4 of Paradise's 6 crazies around you. 4 of the 6 crazies. Miss Foxy, Maria, Uriel, Claire, Agnes? Ah, you're right. Chohong counted with her fingers and eventually burst out laughing. He's contracted to 1 and 2 came to visit him. He's screwed. Are we going to find his corpse one day in an alleyway somewhere? Pew-ha-ha-ha? Chohong cackled as she smacked Seol Jihu's back. Who's the other one? Ah, Cinzia. Cinzia Noonan? Pew-ha-ha-ha? But for some reason, Hugo wasn't laughing at all. In fact, he was staring at Chohong with an expression that was a mixture of bitterness and confusion. His lips were twitching like he wanted to tell her something, but he just clicked his tongue and bit down on the fruit again. Be careful, Seol, especially of the one close to you. I'm not kidding. He whispered to Seol Jihu while chewing on the fruit. Seol Jihu returned a wry smile. But calling them crazy, isn't that a bit rude? Rude. Do you know how long I've known her? Crazy doesn't begin to describe her. Her nickname is Slaughter Maiden. Slaughter Maiden. It's not even Battle Maiden. Slaughter Maiden. While Chohong was busy cackling to herself with her hands on her belly, the 2 men whispered to each other. Didn't I tell you before? She acts all coy and innocent around you. Really? Chohong, coy, she almost beat me up today, though that was my fault. Exactly. That barely counts as being angry. It has to be at least 10 times what you've seen today to say, she's really triggered today. 10 times. Seol Jihu couldn't believe it. He immediately activated 9 eyes and glanced at Chohong. Chohong's status window, general information. Summon date, November 18th, 2015. Marking grade, red, sex/age, female/22, height/weight. 170.2 cm/58.6 kg, current condition, healthy, class LV. 4, divine champion, nationality, Hong Kong, area 7, affiliation, Carpe Diem, alias, Go Stop, Slaughter Maiden, 6 crazy, Chung tricked again. Huh. It was true. Seol Jihu was just about to ask Cho-hong to read her aliases on her status window, but then his eyes spotted the shattered drawer next to his bed. Suddenly, a chill ran down his back. Ah, I haven't laughed that hard in a while. Cho-hong finally grabbed a hold of herself and was wiping tears off her eyes. Anyways, you're going, right? HM? To Earth. Seol Jihu suddenly felt he was caught off guard. Hello, don't you need to go back? Your contractor is calling you, you know. Yeah, I'll give her a call. What are you talking about? How are you going to call someone on Earth from here? What, is there something you need to do? Why do you sound reluctant to go back? Princess Teresa said she'd invite me to the palace. Who cares? That can go once you come back. Seol Jihu was a loss for words and could only stammer. Cho-hong felt that something was off and her eyebrows perked up. Do you really not want to go back? And no. Seol Jihu answered reflexively, but he couldn't hide his Adam's apple trembling slightly. It was then that Seol Jihu noticed his fingers shaking and hid them under the blanket. To be honest, he wanted to tell her he didn't want to go back. He didn't know why. It was just that when he thought about leaving paradise, an instinctive sense of rejection swelled inside him. He felt his chest congest uncomfortably and even felt a bit of anxiousness. But he couldn't bring himself to say all this. If he did, he knew Cho-hong would ask why. He didn't want to lie, but he didn't want to tell the truth either. No. Now that he thought about it, he did have to go back at least once. It was hard to say he was in a secure position on Earth, and he also figured it would be easier to find basic knowledge of spear throwing and energy circulation on Earth. Thinking about it this way, he felt a bit better. Right, if I want to live in paradise, of course I'm going back. I have things to take care of, so it might take a while until I'm back. Yeah, I'm sure. Don't worry about it and have a safe trip. Cho-hong erased her suspicions hearing Seol Jihu's straightforward answer. Seol Jihu smiled. He was already excited when he thought about learning mana spear and mana circulation once he returned. Carp Diem's new direction was revealed. The 3 remaining members decided to take a break and use the time to think about the future. Cho-hong and Hugo said they would go back to Earth today. Seol Jihu figured he shouldn't waste any more time. After asking Cho-hong to bring him a bag, he contacted Kim Hannah through the communication crystal ball she gave him. She's not picking up. However, he couldn't get in touch. It seemed she still had not returned from Earth. He grabbed the clothes Cho-hong brought him and left the treatment room. Since he wasn't in a hospital, he didn't need to go through formal procedures to be allowed to leave. Still, he had to pay for the treatment he received. It looks like my body's gotten a lot better. Seol Jihu cracked his neck and swung his arms around, only to be surprised beyond belief. His physical body was simply too healthy. His wounds had all closed up, and although he might just be mistaken, he felt like his mana was circulating more intensely than before. Overall, it felt like he powered up, almost like he ate a precious herb or pill. However, he couldn't remember a thing about the priest who healed him. It was because he did nothing but sleep after seeing that bright light. That said, he knew someone had taken care of him deeply for the 24 hours he was asleep or barely awake. Who could it be? To pay for his treatment, and to thank the priest who took care of him, Seol Jihu headed to the reception desk of the temple. However, he was met with an unexpected predicament. She's not here? No, she said she had something urgent to take care of. Then can I at least know her name? I apologize, that isn't something I can reveal without her permission. He was even told that he didn't need to pay. Apparently, whoever treated him had given the priests a strict order not to receive payment. Still, Seol Jihu remained persistent, and the reception lady eventually said that the treatment cost at least 1 gold coin. Seol Jihu couldn't hide his shock when he heard that. How amazing was the person who treated me. In the end, he gave in and stood in front of the returning warp gate. He told himself that going back was the right choice, yet he was still hesitant. Don't expect anything. Don't expect anything. He muttered to himself multiple times before he entrusted himself to the blue light, returning to Earth. He had experienced it once before, but he couldn't help but feel a little strange. It wasn't that he was unfamiliar with the sensation of returning. He was unfamiliar with the clean room he returned to. How long was I gone? He looked around his room like he was standing in someone else's place. He then found his phone lying on the ground. Perhaps because of the constant reminder to not expect anything he muttered in his head, his hands didn't immediately grab it. He knew he would only be disappointed. However, he still needed his phone if he were to contact Kim Hannah. Seol Jihu smacked his lips and picked up the phone. It looks like it's still morning. When he opened the window, he was greeted by blazing sunlight. He furrowed his brows as stuffy, hot air rushed in. It was early May. The weather was too hot considering summer had only just begun. Guess I'm back. He watched cars running through the streets under his apartment buildings. Then he suddenly grabbed his wallet. Like a donkey stung by a bee, he hurriedly left his apartment building and ran to the convenience store by the road. Q. When he bought a can of Coke and chugged it down his throat, he felt like he had the whole world under his grasp. He never thought carbonated drinks would feel so good. Only after purchasing a pack of cigarettes on top did he feel like he was finally back on Earth. After emptying the can of Coke and finishing a cigarette by the roadside, he felt relaxed. He wanted to go grab some tasty food but knew he had better things to do. He took out his phone and pressed the power button with his thumb, his eyes constantly staring at the screen. The moment the phone finished booting and the screen popped up, BZZZ, BZZZ, BZZZ. The phone buzzed crazily. Although there was a short pause between each vibration, he could count at least 10 of them. His eyes now widened. Seol Jihu checked his messages. His jaw dropped slightly. Mom and Hyung too. Most of his missed calls seemed to be spam calls, but his mother had called him twice and his older brother, Seol Wooseok, once. WI. It wasn't as if someone was chasing him, but Seol Jihu panicked. He checked the date of the calls. Although it had been a while since then, he was still tempted to call them back. But after thinking about it a little more, he decided that wasn't such a good idea. They had to be calling to ask where he got the money he previously showed up with. Seol Jihu had yet to come up with a good answer. As such, there was only one person for him to call right now. It was April 17th, the last time I was here. Right. He remembered Kim Hannah yelling at him for not picking up his phone as he scrolled down the list of past callers. An unregistered phone number had called him several times on April 17th. Judging by the time the calls were made, he became positive that this was Kim Hannah's number. But now that he thought about it, calling her wasn't so easy either. He tried his best to calm his beating heart as he pressed the call button. Beep! Before the ringtone sounded out once, Seol Jihu quickly pulled his phone away from his ear. He could barely hear the voice coming out of the phone, but he picked up on a few words, including son and tard. Percented hashandat hashat, like a sparrow that met a bird of prey, Seol Jihu blankly stared at his crying phone. Chapter 94. Miscalculation. The coffee shop's door opened, and a youth walked in. After looking around the place carefully, he spotted a young woman sitting by the window. She was in a semi-formal attire rather than her usual gray business suit, but her neatly tied ponytail was a definite trademark of Kim Hannah. The youth walked up to her stiffly, but Kim Hannah showed zero reactions. She had her arms folded and her legs crossed, staring in front of her with an expressionless face. Like a criminal with clear evidence against him, Seol Jihu hesitantly sat down on the seat across from her. Kim Hannah, he called her quietly, but Kim Hannah wasn't even staring at him. He couldn't be sure whether she was zoned out or just ignoring him, but her eyes were staring at the empty air. A heavy silence filled the atmosphere. Seol Jihu looked down somewhat in shame. The awkward atmosphere was hard to bear. He would have much preferred Kim Hannah to spit out curses as he expected her to, but she had a different air about her. This can't be good. He schemed to look for the right opportunity to gloss over the subject, but that thought vanished completely. No matter how mischievous and immature he was, he knew when and when not to joke with someone, just as he was starting to get worried that his pounding heart might pop out of his chest. I've thought a lot about it. Kim Hannah finally began. You might have thought that I was being overprotective of you. Of course, I don't agree with that at all, but I understand if that's what you thought. She continued in a quiet voice. I thought doing so was best for you, but I guess what's important in the end is how you perceived it. And putting it that way, giving you the communication crystal was careless of me. Using my status as your protector to interfere in your life or to get you to do what I want, you might have thought about me that way. Kim Hannah sounded serious. Seol Jihu was just about to say, "No, I've never about you that way." But when he saw Kim Hannah taking out a white envelope from her purse, he flinched. So, she put the envelope on the table and placed her hand on top of it. Her hand trembled as if she was about to push it forward. "If you really want?" "No." Seol Jihu replied as his instincts told him to. "What?" Kim Hannah sounded like a well-sharpened blade. "I don't think of you that way. Not now." Seol Jihu shook his head. When he activated 9 eyes, the envelope changed color. Kim Hannah was gold just like before, but the envelope had a murky yellow color. This was the first time Seol Jihu was seeing the Golden Commandment with the attention required. "I'm being honest," Seol Jihu quickly added. He didn't know what was inside the envelope, but he had a strong feeling he must never receive it. The moment he did, he felt like Kim Hannah would disappear from his life. "You don't think of me that way yet." Kim Hannah's eyebrows perked up. For the first time since Seol Jihu entered the coffee shop, she met his eyes. "You acted that way?" When he saw her icy gaze, he shrunk back like a frog in front of a snake. One thing he could be glad about was that her hand holding the yellow envelope went loose. However, she still had her hand on it. Tap, tap, tap. Kim Hannah rapidly tapped on the envelope with her index finger before opening her mouth. "How was it?" "Those 8 days. It couldn't have been just once or twice that your life was at risk. It was fun, right?" Hovering over the boundary of life and death, weren't those moments electrifying? "Ah, you even had a beautiful princess by your side, so it must have been exhilarating." "Don't say it like that." Seol Jihu smiled bitterly. "Am I wrong?" If it looked like it wouldn't work out, it would have been as simple as committing suicide before getting caught. "Kim Hannah, I know you're angry and I can understand why. Since I didn't keep the promise I made, it's my fault 100%. But I'm not the type to enjoy trouble." "No, it's not even right to call that incident trouble. I'm not a psychopath who enjoys death." Seol Jihu's serious tone put a frown on Kim Hannah's face. "That experience was a nightmare. It was like I was standing before a huge wall with nowhere to go. I was starving, my throat was parched, my body screamed in pain, and I couldn't even sleep properly because of the constant pursuit from the enemies. What happened was my fault, but it wasn't just once or twice that I wanted to kill myself in despair. Right, those 8 days were a nightmare, one that I never want to experience again." Tap, tap. Kim Hannah's index finger became slower. She furrowed her brows. "So you weren't enjoying yourself. Think about it carefully. Of course, it might have been hard for you at the time, but now that everything's gone and past, don't you think about it this way?" "What way?" "You know, content, satisfying, even something along the lines of, I knew I could do it or it was a good experience." "That makes no sense." Seol Jihu chuckled as if he waved his hand around. "I don't even think that way about my time in the military. Plus, I already told you how I felt. I won't think about it that way even in 10 years. "Really? You really don't think this way? You probably don't understand. Returning alive, eating, drinking, sleeping on a bed, and even talking with you here, everything feels like a dream to me. I'm happy, but sometimes I'm worried I would close my eyes and open them, only to find myself in that situation again." Tap, tap. Kim Hannah's tapping sped down noticeably. She studied Seol Jihu as if she was trying to sniff out a secret. Her expression was clearly one of confusion, her eyes narrowed, and as if to give up, she bit down on her lips. "Then what is it?" "If it's not that, then why did you go?" "Money." "No, if you cared about money so much, you wouldn't have rejected me previously." "Is it honor, then?" "No, the Seol Jihu I know isn't someone who's obsessed about honor." "So if it's not money or honor, what is it? I just can't understand." "Whatever, fine. If you're telling me the truth, prove it to me right now." Thunk. Kim Hannah kicked the table and asked in a forceful tone, "If something similar happens in the future, what will you do? Since you know it's tough enough to make you want to kill yourself, you won't go again, right?" "No, that might not be the case." "What?" "I'm saying it depends on the people involved." Seol Jihu replied firmly, "If it's for a complete stranger, I won't go. It's not like I'm some altruistic saint, but—" He paused momentarily and stared at Kim Hannah. "If it's you who I need to save, then I'll go. no matter what I have to do. Ha! Kim Hannah looked as if she had just heard the most absurd pickup line. Am I supposed to be touched? I didn't mean it that way. Then tell me, I've been asking you for a while now, why? I'm not your family member or your girlfriend, I'm just one of your acquaintances. It was clear to anyone listening in that Kim Hannah still couldn't understand. So why are you saying you'd save me? What's the reason? The golden rule. Tap, the tapping stopped. Seeing Kim Hannah's frozen index finger, Seol Jihu smiled gently. Because you are my golden commandment. Kim Hannah stared at him in a daze. I don't understand what that means. She shook her head as she muttered in a raspy voice. Seol Jihu suddenly opened his mouth. Do you remember the first time we met? What are you on about now? You told me to reveal my secrets in exchange for the invitation. Kim Hannah's eyes widened and her mouth opened slightly. Let's say it's a part of that. Hey, you better not be trying to gloss over this with some random bullshit. You're saying you can't tell me because you don't trust me. Don't say it like that. In the first place, you're the one who approached me to use me. Seol Jihu said curtly. I had no intention of revealing my secrets. Not to you or anyone else. Since you're the one who made me fall into a pit of despair in my dream, he swallowed this line down. But after seeing how you were treating me, I changed my mind. It's still changing. I'm debating whether to tell you everything or not. I feel like I can trust you, but I can't be sure. I'm in a constant struggle. Kim Hannah tilted her head. She looked up at the ceiling with a puzzled look. I'm not sure what. Ha! In the end, she turned her gaze back down and massaged her temples with her hands. Anyways. Seol Jihu continued to talk. We established a new relationship back when we last met, and it's true that I'm the one who broke our promise. I have nothing to say other than sorry. A long sigh rang out along with the murmuring, golden rule, golden rule. Soon. Okay, I think I get it. Kim Hannah? Shut up for a bit, I'm still organizing my thoughts. So what you're saying is that you're justified in participating in that mission and that you're not addicted. Okay, fine, I get all that. Kim Hannah muttered in a somewhat feeble voice then, but you need to know this. She locked her fingers together and stared straight at him. There is no incident without a problem, but not only are you actively looking for incidents, but you're also walking into them with your own 2 feet. That's... Quiet. Do you know what I went through a few days ago? You and I are bound by a contract. Your actions have consequences that directly affect me. Whether those consequences are good or bad doesn't matter. I prefer not to be swept into things I can't handle any more than this. I promise. Something like this won't happen ever again. Well, we'll see about that. I'm not the type of person who thinks people can be changed to my liking. Kim Hannah told him flat out but revealed a hesitant expression. But, looking at you, I'm starting to change my mind. At the very least, the Seol Jihu that's in front of me isn't the gambling addict I know, right? Yeah, but you still broke our promise twice. I hate people who habitually break promises more than gambling addicts. Kim Hannah leaned forward. So, Jihu. She grabbed Seol Jihu's hands and held them tightly. Don't disappoint me any more than this. The pressure coming from her palms seemed to say, there won't be a third time. Please, knowing how special you think of me, I don't want to be a fox to you too. Kim Hannah's alias was Miss Foxy. Hugo even said she was one of the 6 crazies. Now that he was looking at her like this, he didn't feel like Hugo was joking. He slowly nodded his head, and only then did Kim Hannah let go of his hands. She glanced at the white envelope on the table. After a moment of hesitation, she carefully picked it up. Seol Jihu swallowed hard, watching the envelope disappear into Kim Hannah's purse. So this is the golden commandment. Treat others how you wanted to be treated. Seol Jihu trembled as he remembered these words. Until now, he only saw the golden commandment in a positive way. Treat others like gold and you will receive gold. So what will happen if you treat others like trash, a double-edged blade? He felt like he was beginning to understand the concept of the 9 eyes right side. Having finished organizing her purse, Kim Hannah asked, Breakfast? HHM? Have you had breakfast? The air suddenly cooled down. Seol Jihu subconsciously let out the breath he had been holding in. He scratched his head and replied, Not yet. After leaving the coffee shop, the duo headed to a restaurant. Kim Hana introduced him to a high-class ginseng chicken soup place called Chicken Cloud Palace and ended up watching Seol Jihu eat with a shocked expression. Nom nom, slurp slurp slurp. He picked the chicken up whole and picked it apart piece by piece. Kim Hana had never seen someone eat ginseng chicken soup as if it was a bowl of noodles. Eat slower. You're going to have problems digesting all that. When she filled his empty cup with water, Seol Jihu paused for a moment and gulped it down in one shot. Kim Hana shook her head, perhaps feeling bad about making him check for her reactions constantly. I won't say anything, so just eat. Eat to your heart's content. Rather than going back to stuffing his face with chicken, Seol Jihu grabbed a napkin and wiped his mouth. I have a question. What? Did something happen? Why do you think something happened? Today you were a bit more hysterical than usual. Ainz, what did you say? Kim Hana's eyes turned into daggers. Seol Jihu quickly changed the topic. I mean, you said so before, that you went through something a few days ago. Hearing this, Kim Hana's glaring eyes loosened and was replaced by bitterness. It's not something to talk about while eating. Don't worry, it won't ruin my appetite. Kim Hana smacked her lips. It's just that I met someone. Who? The First Lady. Seol Jihu was about to take another bite out of the chicken but paused midway. By First Lady, you mean? Who do you think? She's Yun Seora's older sister. Her. What, did she beat you up or something? She's not like that. Kim Hana chuckled and took out a document the size of an A4 paper from her purse. Here it's 252.5 million won. I sold it for 500 silver coins. Sold what? The ornament you gave me, stupid. Seol Jihu dropped the chicken. Oh, really? Yep. I already converted it to Earth's currency. You understand why, right? Seol Jihu was about to shout, of course I do. It's not like I'm short on money in paradise, but he didn't and fell into deep thought. It didn't look like Kim Hana was all that happy about it. Did someone steal the money? I would have preferred that, actually. That way I would have something over them. What was that supposed to mean? Seol Jihu couldn't quite understand what she was talking about, so he decided to just listen for now. This problem actually started from you spending the 100 million won I gave you. Seol Jihu immediately coughed, and Kim Hana burst into laughter. Anyways, I plan to give this money to you over the course of 3 years. 3 years? Yeah. Like a salary, I plan to give you 4 million every month and give out the rest through various bonuses and benefits. Seol Jihu blinked repeatedly before going, Ah, you were trying to make it look like I got a job, like Sinyoung's system. That was good news for him. When he visited his parents before, he told them he got a job. But the reality was that he would be at a loss for words if they started asking him about it. Once, they began asking questions like, what company do you work for? Let me see your contract, or let me see your bank account. They would discover the truth in no time. But with a fake job, everything would be resolved. Given Kim Hana's skills, she would have undoubtedly come up with a legit source for the 100 million won she gave him. You're really smart when it comes to things like this. Kim Hana snorted at Seol Jihu's compliment and continued. Right. I wanted to arrange a secure source of money for you and give you a secure environment so that you wouldn't have to worry about life on this side. So I wanted to push you into a foreign company I trust, but... Chapter 95. You did well, Jihu. After hearing Kim Hana's brief explanation, Seol Jihu couldn't help but be a bit puzzled. To Sinyoung. Apparently, Kim Hana was faced with the words, is there a need for him to go to another company? Bring him to Sinyoung. The person who said this was supposedly Yun Seohui, Sinyoung Pharmaceuticals' top-level executive. So, I'm going to become affiliated with Sinyoung. Not necessarily. Kim Hana swirled her chopsticks around the ginseng chicken soup, her ponytail dancing in the air. I told you before, right? That those with the authority to invite Earthlings to paradise have the duty to develop a safe environment for Earthlings to cross worlds. Yeah, think about it that way. Nothing more, nothing less. You said you were going to the place I recommended you, so Sinyoung basically volunteered themselves. Frankly, it's not a bad deal. In fact, it's a great one. It seemed Sinyoung stepped up when nobody asked them to. Of course, they couldn't force Kim Hana to invite Seol Jihu or force Seol Jihu to accept their offer. Right, there's no problem on the surface. Kim Hannah suddenly grabbed her chopsticks as if to split them in half, but it still feels like shit. She then furrowed her brows and bore her teeth. That bitch. Do you know what she said? Oh, Miss Hannah, don't you think you're being a bit too greedy? Fuck her. What business does she have with my belongings? I'm the one who got that gold stamp, and I'm the one who's contracted to you. That fucking whore. The emotions behind her voice surpassed the level of rage and resentment and treaded into the level of abhorrence and cursing. It seemed Kim Hannah's pride had really been hurt. Anyways, there's no problem on the surface, but you still need to stay sharp. This gives them a point of contact with you. Do I have to go to them? Can't you just say I declined their offer? There's no reason for you to. Well, you could always say it's personal preference. That's true, but that will only create more enemies for you, plus it will trouble me too. But Seol Jihu was about to say, but why would it? But he swallowed his words back down. He made a somewhat meek, helpless expression. I'm just finding it hard to understand. Understand what? Did I do something wrong? Kim Hannah's eyes widened. Seol Jihu twirled his spoon around as he continued. Why is everyone so bent on harassing me? I just wanted to save them, that's all. I didn't have other intentions. It's true that I just did what I wanted at the time, but it's not like I hurt them or inconvenienced them somehow. I'm busy trying to mind my own business yet. That's just how paradise is. Kim Hannah looked at him bitterly and quietly cut him off. The world isn't as simple and clear as you think. I can guarantee you one thing. Guarantee? Seol Jihu asked. Kim Hannah hesitated for a long time before finally opening her mouth. Wait. Even if you don't do anything, there will be people who curse you. The more famous you get, the more hate you'll receive. Some people will even resent you. That's not the end of it. There will be a ton of people who are going to try to use you, even if you didn't do anything wrong. But why? Seol Jihu looked visibly confused, because you're trying to jump ahead. Kim Hannah said with a bitter smile, that's just how the world is. She muttered in a low voice. She wasn't done yet. That's not all. Even on Earth, there are thousands of incidents people find hard to understand. For example, a serial killer randomly murdering people. Assailants don't care about the victim's intentions at all. Just look at celebrities. Sure, some of them might deserve the hate they receive, but there are a lot more who don't. Do you know why haters leave mean comments or attack them on their social media? It's simple. Because they're unhappy, because they want attention, because they're bored, because they don't like the way someone looks, because they just want to argue, because they're jealous. There are countless reasons. Seol Jihu was at a loss for words. He still couldn't fully understand, but he couldn't think of anything to say either. Don't worry about it too much. Seeing Seol Jihu's depressed expression, Kim Hannah remarked as if to console him. You know who I am, right? I'm your protector. I'll make sure no harm comes to you because of this, so don't worry. Kim Hannah seemed to have a plan from the way she was talking. Seol Jihu nodded his head, feeling somewhat apologetic in his heart. He wasn't comfortable seeing Kim Hannah run around trying to clean up the mess he made. After a moment of silence, Kim Hannah opened her mouth. Anyways, let's stop talking about that now and move on to something else. You. Me? I thought you'd fool around more in paradise. I'm surprised you actually came here at the right time. Kim Hannah cleaned the table and put a big basket on top of it. The basket was decorated with flowers and a ribbon, and 2 bottles of wine could be seen inside. Seol Jihu could tell they were high-class wines just by looking at their labels. Wow, what's this? They look expensive. Dom Perignon Rose Vintage 2004. It's not that expensive, about 500,000 won per bottle. Dom, what? Never mind that. Here, write. Kim Hannah handed him a pen and a simple but beautiful letter. When Seol Jihu stared at her blankly, she muttered as if she was looking at a fool. Don't you know what day it is today? It's not my birthday, at least. Ah, is it yours? No, mine is August 1st. Then a celebratory day for me getting a job. Are you crazy? Kim Hannah narrowed her eyes and chuckled. Geez, do you really want to reconcile with your family? Seol Jihu tilted his head. His father, mother, older brother, and younger sister, none of them had their birthday in May. Today is your parents' wedding anniversary. Wedding anniversary? Really? Seol Jihu's eyes widened. How do you know something I don't? Oh, please, I investigated your background for half a year. Besides, how do you not know your parents? No, never mind. I guess I expected too much from a gambling addict. Kim Hannah shook her head before throwing the pen and letter at Seol Jihu. Of course, Seol Jihu wasn't really sure what to do with them. Never mind knowing what to write, he wasn't even sure if he should go visit them. Do I have to go? He suddenly remembered the last time he visited them. Stop fucking wasting my time, okay? You think I'll fall for your lies again? Horse racing, or sports betting, more than a few weeks had passed since then, but thinking about that day still pained him like his heart was being stabbed by a knife. Also, it made him afraid. Come on, what are you waiting for? Right, let me see what you can come up with. You know. Seol Jihu forced a smile and carefully opened his mouth. Can I send this through their mail? I'll even pay extra to get it to them fast. Hearing this, Kim Hannah glared at him sharply. Seol Jihu flinched and quickly continued talking. I mean, today is supposed to be a happy day for them. If I go, I'm only going to ruin the mood. I don't even think they'll let me in. Hey. Kim Hannah frowned and folded her arms. If you have a brain, use it. You're already a piece of trash. If you were in your parents' shoes, what would you think if their trash of a son sent a single letter by mail for their anniversary? You think they'd go, "Oh, Tilda, our son is taking care of us now that he's financial stable. Tilda, what a good boy, Tilda, huh?" Seol Jihu had nothing to say to Kim Hannah's sarcastic remark. To your family, you're still a gambling addict. Don't you want to escape from that image? Tell me. I do. Seol Jihu barely eked out an answer. Kim Hannah pointed to the basket with her chin. Then take this and go tell them. Look at them in the eye and beg for their forgiveness. Isn't that the least you can do as their son? Seol Jihu could only wordlessly wet his lips. You're joking, right? Do you have any idea how long it takes to heal a wounded heart? Begging for their forgiveness dozens of times might not be enough, but mail? Kim Hannah snorted as if she just heard the most absurd joke in the world. And let's get this straight. Just like you said, they might not even let you in. You'll definitely ruin the mood if you go. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. You don't want to go because you know how they will treat you. You're avoiding them. Seol Jihu felt dazed by Kim Hannah's violent flurry of facts. No, that's not. You really are a bastard, aren't you? After leaving them with so many wounds, you're scared of getting yelled at. Are you for real? Hey. What? You think I'm exaggerating? You want me to stop? Fine, do what you want. They're your family, not mine. Okay, I get it. In the end, Seol Jihu gave in and grabbed the pen. Seeing him take the letter, Kim Hannah snorted once again. What matters is you going to see them. And make sure to write each word carefully and cleanly. What heals a wounded heart isn't time or medicine. It's sincerity. I know. Seol Jihu pouted his lower lips, but began to slowly move the pen in his hand. Seeing him wrecking his brain trying to come up with the right words, Kim Hannah smiled secretly. She had made thorough preparations for their meeting. She had answers ready for anything they might ask, including information regarding the company that hired him and the source of the money he previously received. She even prepared a formal suit for him to wear. Of course, it wasn't a brand new one. The collar of the dress shirt was loose, and the suit jacket gave off an aged smell. Simply put, it was the suit of a typical company employee working overtime every day. That was the hard-working company employee look Kim Hannah was going for. Do I have to go this far? Seol Jihu couldn't help but wonder, but he still did as Kim Hannah said and waited until it seemed like the right time to visit. The sun was setting, and the sky was dyed in orange light. It was a little past 7. He had purposely avoided visiting them during dinner time. Given what he knew about his parents' personalities, he knew they would be having a celebratory dinner. Rather than coming before dinner time and making it difficult for them to swallow food, he judged it would be better once they had time to digest what they ate. Calm down, heart, please. As familiar buildings came into view, his heart pounded harder and harder. He had experienced the same feeling once before, yet fear flooded in like a tidal wave. He knew what would happen, but he couldn't help but remain a little hopeful. Don't expect anything, don't expect anything. He recited the same line over and over again in his heart, like it was some sort of a magical spell. Before long, he arrived at his destination. He carefully opened the main gate and walked up the staircase. His legs moved quickly at first, but when he arrived at the front door, they slowed to a pause. With a briefcase in one hand and the basket Kim Hannah prepared in the other, Seol Jihu stared at the closed door for a long time. His pounding heart didn't slow down and only got faster. He was even beginning to worry that it would burst out of his chest. Who? He smacked his chest a couple times and pressed the doorbell after much deliberation. Ding, ding, the ringing sent a shiver down his spine, almost like it was an alarm alerting the start of his execution. A queasy feeling was beginning to well up inside his stomach when the ringing ended. He pressed the doorbell again, but he couldn't hear anyone coming to the door. The front door remained shut. Are they out? Given the occasion, it would make sense if they went out for dinner. Once his thoughts reached here, he suddenly felt air leaving his body, and a sense of relief rushed in. What should I do? Should I wait? Or just leave the basket here? Seol Jihu paced back and forth in the hallway for dozens of minutes before finally deciding to place the basket in front of the door. After putting the letter he took great effort to write between the flowers, he turned around. It was then. Ha. Yeah, so I. He could hear the sound of harmonious talking coming from a distance. I was almost disappointed when you said you couldn't make it. Sorry, something came up suddenly. The sound quickly grew louder. You resolved everything? Yes, thankfully, and it soon approached the main gate. Ah. By the time Seol Jihu snapped out of his daze, they had already gone inside. For some reason, Seol Jihu was looking for a place to hide. Of course, there wasn't anything like it. Wait, why is the main gate open? Did you not close it on your way out, Appa? I did. Wait, maybe someone came. Seol Jihu began making his way down when he ran into them. The moment the 6 pairs of eyes discovered the youth, their harmonious chit-chat stopped. The first one to speak was Seol Jinhee. The hell? Why is that son of a bitch here? Her curt tone stung. Seol Jihu was just as flustered as anyone else. He somewhat suspected that this would be the case, but on top of his father, mother, older brother, and younger sister, Yu Seon-hwa and Yu Seung-hee were there as well. The 6 of them seemed to have returned after eating out. As the youth wasn't expecting to meet them this way, he only stared at them in a daze. Seeing this, a brown-skinned, middle-aged man opened his mouth slightly. You! But that only lasted a moment. His face quickly distorted, and he immediately shut his mouth. Kyuhum. He gave the youth a sharp glare before stomping up the stairs silently. After that, he didn't look at the youth, much less talk to him. He purposely ignored the basket in front of the door and pressed the door lock password. Son. As the youth was about to turn into a fish out of water, a nostalgic voice flowed into his ears. His mother was looking up at him with an entranced look. Mom. Ago, my little son. She staggered up the stairs and was about to grab his hand when his father threw the door open and shouted. What are you doing? Come inside, startled, the mother's complexion distorted. What are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? Why don't you ask that bastard? When the youth's father came outside and began approaching him with his fist clenched, his mother quickly stepped between the two of them. Calm down. He came to visit us. Visit us? So what? Dear, can't you tell Jihu's been walking on eggshells since a while ago? How can you just ignore him? Don't you feel bad? Ha, a loud snort followed. You're the problem. How many times have you been tricked until now? You still don't get it. This bastard isn't a human being. He's just a piece of trash. He's worse than a beast. The atmosphere quickly changed for the worse. Perhaps because loud voices were flying back and forth, Yu Seung-hee hid behind her older sister, and Seol Jinhee watched the spectacle with a satisfied look on her face. Everyone had different reactions, but one thing Seol Jihu could be sure of was that they were looking at him with eyes that seemed to say, "Why did you come?" This is why I didn't want to come. Facing the looks of scorn and being battered by coarse condemnation, Seol Jihu closed his eyes tight. His father and mother were still arguing. He said he quit gambling and is working hard now. And you believe that? The casino ban. Seorak Land isn't the only casino in Korea. It's obvious what he's up to. Do I need to spell it out for you? Stop it, would you? He already paid back what he owed. He even came to see us with a gift, knowing it was our anniversary. We should at least hear him out. Paid back what he owed. You want to talk about money? Fine. Thud, the door shot open, loud stomps rang out, and something smacked Seol Jihu's face. Yoop. Seol Jihu opened his eyes, only to see an envelope falling down with a wad of cash inside. You bastard! His father yelled with his finger pointed at him. You think the past's all gone and done now that you returned the money? You want to go back to acting like a son? Father. Shut it. Don't call me father. I don't remember having a bastard like you as my son. His thunderous roar made his wife flinch. Seol Jihu opened his mouth as calmly as he could. Father, I'm sorry, I told you to shut it, he yelled as if he didn't want to hear a thing. His anger didn't seem to reside after all that yelling, as his breathing continued to get rough. I told you before, didn't I, that you should never do anything ever again to make you apologize or give an excuse. His growling way of talking made Seol Jihu shut his mouth. Why, you shameless son of a bitch, you think money was the problem. You think everything's over after throwing us an envelope of money without even a simple explanation. Huh, father. I told you to shut up. I dare you to open your mouth again. I'll rip it to shreds. Dear, now screw off. I don't want to see you again. After a loud grunt, Seol Jihu's father turned around and stomped into the house. His mother chased after him to plead with him. Soon, loud arguing rang out once more, and Seol Jihu bit his lips from rising guilt. They must have been having fun. I shouldn't have come. A heavy silence descended. Seol Wusiak, who was standing still a distance away, scratched the back of his head. Looking at his younger brother standing there like a stone statue, he opened his mouth. You came from work? Huh, yeah. Seol Jihu nodded with a dazed look. He might be mistaken, but Seol Wusiak's voice seemed to have gotten a tad gentler. You should have come a bit earlier. We went to the place you like. Bong Pyongyang? Yep, you love their naengmyeon. Ah, well, if I came earlier, you guys probably wouldn't have eaten anything. I guess. Seol Wusiak chuckled bitterly. Seol Jihu swallowed hard. How long had it been since he last held a conversation with his older brother? He didn't know what to make of it. Seol Wusiak glanced at the basket in front of the door and opened his mouth. Are you busy today, too? You're not planning on going back after just dropping this off, are you? No, I've been waiting for you guys to come back. Then come in. Seol Wusiak held up the black plastic bag in his hand. Come eat some dessert. It's ice cream. Seol Jihu blinked repeatedly. For a moment he doubted his own ears. I can. You came to talk to them, right? God spare me the bullshit. At that moment, a sharp voice cut in between them. Where do you think you're going? Seol Jinhee walked closer with a sneering smirk on her face. Jinhee? Stay out of this, Appa. Hey, can't you take a fucking hint? She raised her hand and poked Seol Jihu's chest with her finger. In truth, it was closer to a stab as he flinched in pain. You saw what happened last time and you still came. Don't you get it? I know how they'll treat me, so I shouldn't come here again. That's the least I can do for the people who were once my family. Didn't something like this pop into your head? Huh, poke, poke. Because of Seol Jinhee's repeated stabbing pokes, Seol Jihu stepped backwards without even noticing it. If you paid back your debts, please disappear from our lives. You saw how you ruined the atmosphere, right? We're happy and healthy without you, so why do you come and cause this mess? Seol Jihu couldn't deny it. He could still hear his parents arguing inside the house. You, get it, now stop trying to crawl back in and fuck off, and don't ever appear in front of us again, okay, you get me? Yuke, poke. Seol Jinhee suddenly stabbed his solar plexus, causing him to bend down and groan. Seol Jinhee. Seol Wusiak stepped in, unable to watch this any further. However, Seol Jihu raised his hand and stopped him. It's fine. He rubbed his solar plexus and forced out a smile. I'll go back for today. Not just for today, but forever. Please? Leaving behind Seol Jinhee, who harassed him until the end, Seol Jihu staggered towards the staircase. He felt like his brother and sister would start fighting if he stayed any longer, so he figured it would be better for everyone if he just left now. But just as he was about to walk down the stairs, his eyes met Yu Xian's. She seemed to be at a loss for what to do, but she was clearly looking at him with mixed feelings of pity and sympathy. Unable to endure the sense of humiliation that dawned on him, Seol Jihu quickened his pace. It was then. Hey, he turned around hearing Seol Jinhee's voice. Take this. Whoosh, the basket came flying towards him. Clang! After hitting the corner of the concrete stair, the wine bottle shattered with a loud bang. The liquid dripping out from the broken bottle wet the letter Sial Jihu wrote, and the petals of the flowers danced in the air before scattering everywhere. Sial Jinhi? What? You're going too far. You're the one to talk, Appa. The brother and sister finally began fighting. Sial Jihu blankly stared at the liquid spreading out on the concrete before squatting down. He picked up the flower petals and the pieces of broken glass. He then heard the sound of someone's footsteps rushing down the stairs. This person squatted down across from him. Don't pick up the broken glass, it's dangerous. SSK, she spoke as she swept the broken glass together with her hand. This young woman with long, flowing hair was Yu Xianhua. Xianhua, wait here, I'll go bring a vacuum cleaner. Xianhua. Yu Xianhua's hand paused. The piece of broken glass in Sial Jihu's tightened fist dug into his palm. Blood dripped down to the ground. A crimson liquid began to spread out, and Yu Xianhua jumped in surprise seeing the youth's trembling hand. Go back, I'll clean it up. Sial Jihu murmured quietly. Why, you're bleeding. It's fine, you can go back. But, please go back, please. Sial Jihu's calm voice only made Yu Xianhua look at him with sorrowful eyes. He clenched his teeth. Soon, after picking all the flower petals and pieces of broken glass up from the ground, Sial Jihu staggered off like a drunk. During that entire time, his head remained tilted down. Time passed, and darkness descended on the streets after dusk. Under a streetlight illuminating a street, Kim Hannah stood leaning against her car and looking up at the night sky. It wasn't until footsteps neared her that she lowered her gaze. Seeing a youth walking closer with a basket in hand, she smiled brightly. She waited until he got closer before finally opening her mouth. If you keep staring at the ground like that, you're going to run into something. The youth came to a stop. Kim Hannah could hear him inhale a small breath. You were waiting. Surprisingly, his voice seemed fine. I came just in case you ran off elsewhere. Well, judging by that basket, it looks like you really went. You don't have to keep tabs on me. What are you, a stalker? Stalker, I prefer the word protector. Kim Hannah said with a languid smile. How was it? I'm sure you can tell. I can. But do you regret going? Sial Jihu didn't immediately reply. Kim Hannah patiently waited for him. After about 5 minutes of silence, he finally opened his mouth. You know how I lived like a piece of trash. In the past, I made a lot of wrongs, too many to be forgiven with just 1 or 2 apologies. I deserved everything I got today. Well, you and I both know that, he sighed. Yeah, then, I know I deserved it. His voice began to tremble. I know I'm the one who's at fault. His shoulders shook. I know all that. After listening to him for a while, Kim Hannah took her back off her car and slowly walked forward. She bent forward and looked up at the youth whose face was lowered. TK. Seeing the drops of tear flow down his already wet cheeks, she smiled. It's fine. Kim Hannah hugged the silently crying Sial Jihu and patted his back. You did well, Jihu. Chapter 96. Intentional misunderstanding. The light of the scorching sun knocked on Sial Jihu's eyes. With blurry eyes, he gazed at his tilted room. He closed his eyes and pulled the blanket up to his head, but now that his mind was awake, sleep didn't return so easily. In the end, he let out a deep sigh and pushed his blanket aside. He dazedly smoked a cigarette by the window and headed straight to the bathroom. Once he doused himself with cold water, he finally felt alive. He was drying his hair with a towel when tang, he heard a knock on the door. Who is it? It's me. That reply was just as out of the blue as the morning visit itself, but Sial Jihu could easily tell who it was. She's here again. He put on his clothes even as he tilted his head curiously. Hold on. Lamborghini Gallardo LP 570 to 4 Superleggera. That was the name of the car Kim Hannah brought with her. Vruyua Sial Jihu glanced at the driver's seat as he listened to the deafening exhaust sound. Light persimmon-colored sunglasses and a blue dress that matched her skin tone. She wasn't wearing her usual formal business attire, but it was easy to tell that she took great care in choosing her outfit. What are you looking at? Kim Hannah asked as she gently turned the steering wheel. Just curious. Do you need to be suspicious of everything? I already told you, Tilda, we're just having fun today. Kim Hannah talked as if she was singing. As a protector, I have a duty to lighten up the mood of a depressed client in my care. You say that when you're the one who made me depressed. Seol Jihu was about to snap back at her but swallowed his words. He was the one who made the decision to go, and he didn't want to be the type of person who would fault someone after buying stocks on a recommendation and losing money. So he changed the subject. Don't you have work? Taking care of you is my biggest work, is what I want to say, but don't you know? Kim Hannah's car came to a stop at her red light. She turned to the passenger seat with a grin. It's Saturday today. Even if it's a weekend, going to work on a weekend. I could go if I wanted, but no one is going to force me to. Sinyoung Pharmaceuticals has a strict 5-day work week. Its employees only need to clock in by 10 a.m., and it has a set closing time of 6 p.m. Seol Jihu shook his head at a loss for words. Yeah. Well, it's great to know they wipe their employees' asses. That's not something you should say to a lady. Kim Hannah snickered and turned back front. Anyways, I'm proud of you. I thought you'd grumble and say, please leave. I want to be left alone. Am I a kid? You're like one sometimes. You didn't know? Kim Hannah giggled, and Seol Jihu immediately retorted while feeling wronged. Is it just me, or are you in a good mood today? As far as Seol Jihu could tell, Kim Hannah was laughing and smiling ever since she came to visit him this morning. Do I look that way? She lowered her sunglasses slightly and asked. Seol Jihu simply nodded. You're right. I feel like I lost 10 years of fat weighing me down. Kim Hannah agreed while snickering. Did she eat something wrong, or did she finally go crazy? Just as Seol Jihu was beginning to worry, she suddenly straightened her neck. I dealt them a blow. To who? You know, Tilda, those sons of bitches who are constantly eyeing other people's things. Kim Hannah explained in a roundabout way, but Seol Jihu immediately understood who she was talking about. What did you do? Nothing much. I just spread the rumor that you might join Sinyoung. Kim Hannah continued. Those bastards have been pressuring me because I couldn't get you to join Sinyoung before, and I just proved them wrong. I'm sure they're realizing now that they were barking up the wrong tree. Spread the rumor? Proved them wrong. Seol Jihu thought about her words carefully before raising his hands. I don't get what you mean. Wait and you'll find out. Just sit back and enjoy the show. Kim Hannah spoke confidently as she stretched hard. Tilda, so where do you want to go? Seol Jihu stared at her dumbfoundedly. Well, there's the saying that a well-plated dish tastes better, so why don't we go to the beauty salon I frequent? So I'm a plate of food to you. The traffic signal changed at that moment. Yeah, like a plate of gold. Kim Hannah smiled brightly and stepped on the accelerator. After being dragged around for the entire day, Seol Jihu finally came back home after dinner. Huck. The moment he entered his room, he threw the shopping bags in his hands to the side and staggered sideways until he leaned against the wall. What kind of girl? He lost count of how many shopping malls they visited. Looking at the dozens of shopping bags lying around him, he made an exhausted expression before grabbing 2 of them. Inside them were a pair of white sneakers and white workout clothes Kim Hannah told him to bring to Paradise. His eyes flickered with light as he stared at the items worth hundreds of thousands of won. When he thought about training in new workout clothes and shoes, his heart pounded a bit in anticipation. It was then that he finally remembered his main reason for returning to Earth. He had forgotten about it until now because of the shock he received yesterday. In all honesty, he wanted to jump back to Paradise now, but he knew he couldn't do that. If he wanted to go back to Paradise even a day earlier, he needed to make the best use of his time on Earth. Thinking about Paradise, he felt a shot of endorphin rush through him. Seol Jihu's eyes shone as he turned his laptop on. Seol Jihu endured the time he spent on Earth thinking only about Paradise. To be exact, he made Paradise the focus of all his thoughts. By doing so, he could forget everything else. Every morning, he put on the workout clothes Kim Hannah bought him and headed to the gym. Having workout equipment really is convenient. It's more efficient, too. Now that he thought about it, he first thought he wanted to join Carp Diem when he saw their first-floor training ground. Since electronic equipment couldn't be brought into Paradise, they didn't have things like treadmills. but they had dumbbells, pull-up bars, and other non-electronic workout tools. Seol Jihu reminded himself to look at the list of non-prohibited items as he grabbed the lat pull-down bar. His scapulae tightened as his back muscle protruded. Bring the bar down until it's almost touching the collarbone. Use the latissimus dorsi muscle, not the arms. He focused on maintaining the posture and breathing that Agnes taught him. Because of this, he didn't notice that a woman sitting on a yoga mattress was stealing glances at his lean and muscular body. Once he finished his workout and left the gym, he headed straight to a large bookstore. He purchased 3 books. Javelin Throw, published by an athletics competition committee. Analysis of techniques for javelin throw delivery. A DVD-included book published by an athletics research group. And Traditional Acupuncture, something he got to prepare for an acupuncture license. When he brought the 3 books to the counter, a young woman who seemed to be a part-time worker opened her mouth hesitantly. Here's your receipt. No, it's fine. Pardon? I don't need the receipt. And no, I think it's better to keep it. Huh. She put the receipt in the plastic bag containing his books and handed it to him with both hands. Although it was somewhat forced on him, it didn't really matter, so he just walked out of the bookstore while scratching his head. Why are books so expensive? He was looking at the prices of the books on the receipt when he found a phone number written at the bottom and tilted his head. Seeing as how it was written with a pen, it didn't seem to be a printing error. What's this? Seol Jihu tilted his head confusedly before putting the receipt in his pocket and making his way to the local library. Sitting down inside the library, he opened the book on acupuncture only to be taken aback. Pictures of the human body strewn with complex dots and lines, traditional Chinese characters, and countless technical jargon. All his eyes recognized was black ink on top of white paper. Damn. He expected it to be difficult, but he didn't think it would be to this degree. Do I have to go this far? Considering the amount of contribution points he had saved up, he could instantly acquire the level 2 skills without a problem. Although he was tempted briefly, Seol Jihu quickly shook off the thought. He remembered what Agnes told him. Although it wouldn't be easy, he believed he would be rewarded handsomely for acquiring the skills on his own. Since he firmly trusted Agnes when it came to training, he doubled down on his resolve and raised his mechanical pencil. I don't need to study everything. He told himself he didn't need to be intimidated since he only needed to learn the core concepts. Moreover, he thought of himself as a quick learner. It's been a while since I last studied, huh? After a brief chuckle, he began to display a frightening level of focus. If the human body and the meridians were to be compared to trees, the 8 extraordinary meridians, the 8 vessels connected to the extraordinary organs. The 24 conception vessel acupoints consist of the sauce receptacle, celestial chimney, chest center, turtle dove tail, central venter, spirit gate, sea of Kai, origin pass, meeting of yin. On a desk illuminated by bright sunlight, a handsome youth was focused on studying with his sleeves rolled up. A heartwarming air naturally filled the atmosphere. Although it wasn't so important now, Seol Jihu was a graduate of Soyoung University, one of Korea's top 4 universities. Other than going to the restroom once, Seol Jihu's butt stayed on his chair the entire time. It wasn't until dinner time that he finally got up from his seat. He quickly headed home. The book on acupuncture was a chore to get through, but the books about the javelin throw were easier than he expected. Of course, there was a limit to how much he could absorb just by reading. Thankfully, one of the books came with a DVD. He was thinking about watching the DVD once he got home, but his eyes were glued to the book as he walked. I see. Throwing doesn't mean I should only be using my hand. If I use a tool called the spear thrower, I can propel the spear much faster than farther than throwing it by hand alone. Excuse me. Seol Jihu was muttering to himself when he raised his head after hearing someone block his path. Are you Mr. Seol Jihu? He was almost home, but there was a man standing in front of his apartment's main parking lot. Yes, I am. Immediately he went, shoot, a formally dressed man was waiting for him at this hour in front of his house. He activated 9 eyes, colorless. After checking his color, he raised his guard and opened his mouth. Who are you? Ah, this is who I am. The man took out a business card and handed it to Seol Jihu respectfully. The word Sinyoung was clearly printed on the card. What business does Sinyoung have with me? I know this may be sudden, but can you come with us? The man cut to the chase and pointed at his sedan. Seol Jihu only stared at him blankly. Why? It's for the fake employment we will be handling, but... Seol Jihu shook his head. I don't think this is the right time. It's too sudden. Please. There's something I need to take care of urgently. I'd like to put this off to a later time. It won't take long, I promise. Hearing this, Seol Jihu closed his book. That sounds like you'll take me no matter what. I apologize if that's what it sounded like. It doesn't look like the fake employment is the only reason. I won't deny that, but I promise the meeting will be short. The man seemed strangely impatient. Seol Jihu asked bravely, If I say no, will you take me by force? Not at all. I was told to treat you with the utmost respect. I have no intention of forcing you to do anything, but if possible, I would really like you to come. And if I say no, then... The man blurred the end of his speech and let out a bitter smile. I will back off here, but our miss will be extremely sad. Our miss. When Seol Jihu's eyes narrowed, the man bent his back. Please, it's fine if you only stay for a cup of tea, so. Seol Jihu clicked his tongue. He didn't want to go. To be exact, he didn't want to involve himself in this problem. But Kim Hannah advised him not to do anything that would create suspicion. If he declined here, there was a huge chance Sinyoung would not see him favorably. For the fake employment, Damn it. It was true that he needed to meet with them about it. The only problem was that Kim Hannah wasn't here. I don't want to burden her any more than this. After careful deliberation, Seol Jihu put his book away. If I only need to meet with them. 9 eyes did not reveal the color of danger. As long as he stayed sharp, he figured he wouldn't be in any life-threatening situation. He would just need to hear them out and nod his head a couple of times. Let's go. The man straightened his back as if he was waiting for these words. Thank you. This way, please. He guided Seol Jihu to his car. After personally opening the door for Seol Jihu, the man got in the driver's seat and said as he turned the engine on, Pardon me for being rude and thank you for being so understanding. Seol Jihu didn't say anything. The man continued as he stepped on the accelerator. In truth, Director Kim Hannah warned us not to approach you, Mr. Seol Jihu, as you are having trouble due to a family matter. That's why our miss waited patiently. Vyuaang. He couldn't hear the rest of the man's sentence because of the engine sound. Come again? Seol Jihu meant to ask him to repeat what he said, but he seemed to have understood him differently as he nodded his head. I'm not lying. Because she's been having trouble sleeping, she's getting weaker and weaker by the day. What was that supposed to mean? Seol Jihu blinked repeatedly with a confused face. Although he had never met Yun Seohui before in his head, she was a mastermind hiding behind the curtains, dressed in black with crossed legs and a glass of wine in her hand. The vampire-like woman was smiling seductively while murmuring, Ho ho, I wonder when I'll get my hands on that toy. But this person was having trouble sleeping at night because she couldn't wait to see him. Rather than a mastermind, she sounded like a maiden in love. He likes to exaggerate quite a bit, Thinking that this might be a ploy to make him lower his guard, Seol Jihu reminded himself to stay sharp. The man drove him to a high-class Chinese restaurant. I thought I only needed to stay for a cup of tea. Seol Jihu wondered as he walked through the VIP area, but when he saw their menu hanging on the wall, he jumped in surprise. They had tea, but 60 million won per cup. He felt like he was in a completely different world. The man guided him to the top floor of the restaurant before carefully knocking on the traditional-style sliding door. I brought him, miss. Next. Thank you. A sweet, melodic voice rang out. The voice was high-pitched but light on the ears. You can take your leave now. But I'm fine. The man glanced at the youth behind him before bowing respectfully and taking his leave. It feels like I'm here to meet the daughter of an esteemed family. Ah, well, I guess I'm not that far off. Seol Jihu muttered inwardly when drrrk. The door shot open as if the person inside was sure that the man had left. The person inside wasn't a vampire nor a maiden dressed in traditional Korean dress. When Seol Jihu met her bloodshot eyes, he couldn't help but drop his jaw. Wish. The red-eyed ghost, no woman ran up to Seol Jihu wearing only her pantyhose. Her bloodshot eyes glistened as they looked up at him. Ah! Her lips pursed as if she had much to say. She got on her tiptoes and grabbed his arms. Finally, her voice was completely different than before. It now carried a hint of yearning that made Seol Jihu snap out of his daze. However, he couldn't hide his shock. He expected to see Sinyoung's first lady, but the woman shining in a brilliant golden light wasn't Yun Seo-hui, but I wanted to see you. Yun Seora, Chapter 97. Great fortune within hardship. The youth's brain found it difficult to accept that the woman in front of him was Yun Seora. Seol Jihu carefully examined her delicate facial features, which reminded him of a sculpture from the Renaissance. His first impression of Yun Seora was that she was an arrogant, prudish city girl. But after he saved her from Kang Seok during the tutorial and lived with her in the neutral zone, he found out that she had a warm, puppy-like personality as well. Her eyebrows were still perked up like a mischievous cat, and the shape of her eyes still gave off a cold aura, but her gaze was so obviously yearning for him that he began to wonder if she came back home after years of hard labor overseas. Jihu Nim. He barely managed to hold himself back from choking on air. She must have called him since he wasn't saying anything but Nim. Nim. Yun Seora must have seen his look of shock as she muttered carefully. Did you tell me a fake name? She had the wrong idea. The problem was with how she addressed him. Seol Jihu shook his head strongly. No, you got the name right, but, addressing me as Nim is a bit. Being the smart girl that she was, Yun Seora quickly realized that he was embarrassed about being called Nim. Ah, then. She tilted her head slightly before opening her mouth. Jihu Appa? Appa. He never imagined a simple word could hold such destructive power. He realized that the same word could have different nuance and flavor depending on who said it. It's better than Nim at least. Once he deactivated 9 eyes, he finally understood the cause of the sense of incongruity he was getting from her. It was her outfit. Leopard print sunglasses hung above her milky forehead. A lacy, navy blue tweed dress encapsulated her slim figure. A maroon leather belt outlined her waistline. A small diamond earring sparkled on her left earlobe, and a thin, 20-denier polka-dot stockings adorned her legs. Even at a glance, her clothes were yelling, "I'm the daughter of a rich family." As Seol Jihu had only seen her in loose hoodies or a set of armor, he could only feel unfamiliar with Yun Seora in her carefully chosen outfit. Right, she was the youngest daughter of Sinyoung. It was then that Seol Jihu realized Yun Seora looked anxious. It's been a long time since they last met. Seeing how he criticized the way she addressed him and has said nothing since, she couldn't be blamed for thinking that Seol Jihu was annoyed for being forced to come when he didn't want to. Of course, it would be a lie to say that Seol Jihu wasn't annoyed, but the moment he found out that Yun Seora was the one who wanted to see him, the ill feeling in his heart disappeared like melting snow. Although Yun Seora was affiliated with Sinyoung, she was also a good friend who has been with him through joy and sorrow. Moreover, Kim Hannah called her the sole ally who could protect him from Yun Seo-hui's hands, and the Golden Commandment was the proof. Knowing this, Seol Jihu was able to smile. I'm surprised. Yun Seora's eyes widened. I didn't think it would be you, Miss Yun Seora. Her worried complexion finally softened and a smile emerged on her face. If it's okay with you. Yun Seora grabbed Seol Jihu's hand tightly and turned to look at the sliding door. Of course. He entered the room without hesitation. The only thing he couldn't understand was why she sat next to him when there was a seat right across from him. She was even on her knees like a prim lady. The way she stared at him affectionately from the beginning to end reminded him of a chihuahua begging to be patted. Seol Jihu found this whole thing a bit troublesome. What should he say? Have you been well? Felt a bit too simple. Why did you call me? Felt too formal and businesslike. As Seol Jihu wrecked his brain to come up with the right words, Yun Seora began the conversation. I'm sorry for calling you here on such short notice. Did any problems come up on your way here? No, not at all. Her cautious, apologetic tone immediately made Jihu shake his hands in denial. I was just a bit surprised. I didn't expect to see Miss Yun Seora, and... When he blurred the end of his speech, Yun Seora fixed her posture with her knees still touching the floor. In essence, she overlapped her hands together and placed them on her lap. Should I say it or not? Jihu could practically read her thoughts as her nervousness increased. Soon, she opened her mouth in a serious tone. I heard you were coming to Sinyang. Jihu's uncomfortable smile quickly disappeared and a serious expression took its place. I also heard you were planning to go someplace else, but was forced by Yun Seohui pressuring Director Kim. He felt a bit strange hearing how she addressed her older sister like a complete stranger, but he kept silent and continued to hear her out. I'll be straight with you. Please apply to the department I'm in charge of. Jihu dropped his jaw and went, Ah. What Kim Hannah told him yesterday flashed in his mind. Has the fake employment matter been decided already? The details, I mean. No, nothing is set in stone at the moment. Yun Seora shook her head, while Jihu nodded his. He began to understand why Kim Hannah was gloating so much last time they met. Although Jihu's employment to Sinyang was only in name, as he would be their official employee by document records, he would need to be associated with a department. There was, of course, a high chance that this department would be Yun Seohui's. In other words, using the excuse of providing a secure environment, Yun Seohui would obtain a point of contact with him. She could easily ask him to show his face every once in a while or summon him by mentioning a mandatory company dinner. There were dozens of ways she could go about this. Yun Seora must have been the trump card Kim Hannah took out to prevent this. By spreading the rumor of Jihu joining Sinyang, she had resulted in Yun Seora making a move. Yun Seora had perfect justification for doing so as well. Since she received such a big help during her time in the neutral zone, who could say anything if she said she wanted to pay back her debts? So this is what she meant by barking up the wrong tree. He discovered the missing pieces of the puzzle, but he still asked just to be sure. Is there something I need to do if I enter Miss Yun Seora's department? Or a rule to follow, even? No, I can promise you there will be nothing like that. Yun Seora replied firmly as if she had been waiting for this question. Her nervous demeanor clearly signaled how much she was waiting for an answer. Okay, then that works with me. A flower bloomed on Yun Seora's face. Seeing the look of relief spreading on her face, Jihu now became positive of something. That expression was one that said, I protected him rather than I did it. Looks like I'll have one thing less to worry about. The problem that had been bothering him from the corner of his mind was taken care of thanks to Yun Seora's intervention. In a way, he was lucky. The favor he did for her during his time in the neutral zone had returned to him as an unexpected fortune. At that moment, several dishes came in. Jihu stared at the luxurious food and widened his eyes. There was just too much. I figured you haven't eaten yet. Yun Seora clasped her hands together and spoke bashfully. I wasn't sure what you'd like, so I prepared a little bit of everything. Crab meat soup glistening in a tasty light, mouth-watering fried pork belly in soy sauce, parboiled bean sprouts, large grilled abalones, and more. All sorts of savory and flavorful aroma stung his nose, making him dizzy. He couldn't take his eyes off the dishes as he asked while drooling. Can I eat all this? The moment he heard the words, of course, he picked up his chopsticks. He was the type of person who lost his mind in front of a tasty dish, so he concentrated on eating. After watching him for a while with a satisfied grin, Yun Seora began to recommend some to him, saying, Try this. She didn't forget to constantly refill his cup with water and remind him to eat slower. After eating whatever he was given for a long time, he suddenly snapped out of his entranced state. Ah, Miss Yun Seora, you should eat. He couldn't bring himself to finish the sentence with two. All the plates on the table were wiped clean. When he looked up in a daze, he could see Yun Seora with her eyes closed tight and one hand over her mouth. She was clearly holding in her laughter. He screamed internally, unable to endure the sense of embarrassment rising up inside him. On the other hand, he felt like this was the first time he saw Yun Seora laugh. Then again, who wouldn't find it funny if someone asked to eat together after devouring everything? Don't worry. There's still some left. Yun Seora suppressed her laughter and began to eat the leftovers. Even as Sial Jihu was trembling from shame, he couldn't help but find Yun Seora's small, nibbling mouth cute. I heard the news. Seemingly trying to save the nervous train wreck in front of her, Yun Seora brought up another topic. It was, of course, about paradise. They began to chat about all kinds of things. One thing that surprised Sial Jihu was how Yun Seora knew everything about his achievements. But Kim Hannah also knew about his major achievements, and since they were acquaintances from the neutral zone, he understood why she might have been interested. Once his thoughts reached here, he wondered how Shin Sang-ah and Hyun Sangmin were doing and asked if she knew anything about them. I have no idea. Yun Seora gave a cutthroat response. Noticing Sial Jihu's dazed expression, she went before hurriedly adding more detail. But I did hear about Siala. Apparently her talent as an archer is excellent. It's looking like she will reach level 2 in a few months. After asking about his old friends from the neutral zone, I'm a level 2 berserker, and no, I'm not that amazing. It's not like I leveled up through my own accomplishments like you, Appa. He asked about Yun Seora. Since he had time on his hand, he was deeply engrossed in the conversation. He found it both fun and interesting. When he first met Yun Seora, he never imagined they would be meeting outside of paradise like this. After drinking an expensive tea to keep his mouth fresh, Sial Jihu finally left the VIP room with Yun Seora. By then, they had already spent 2 hours talking inside. Sial Jihu walked a step ahead to pay for the meal, but he felt a bit guilty once he found out that the meal had already been paid for. I'll pay for our meal next time. Sial Jihu vowed to treat her to a tasty meal to wash away today's shame. However, Yun Seora flinched when she heard what he said. Really? Hearing her high-pitched tone, cold sweat went down Sial Jihu's back. Yun Seora had laughed about the matter before, but he couldn't help but think she was angry about it inside. After hesitating for a moment, Yun Seora took out her cell phone and stared at it fixedly. Then, can I call you again? Of course. Sial Jihu nodded his head immediately. After exchanging their numbers, the two of them left the restaurant. The sky was already dark, showing just how long they talked inside. On the parking lot outside, the man who drove him here was waiting with his car. Sial Jihu insisted on taking a taxi home, but he found himself in the back seat of the sedan before he noticed what happened. An awkward air filled the atmosphere. Yun Seora was chatty back when it was just the two of them, but she remained silent perhaps because there was someone else with them. Huff, huff, he could only hear her soft breaths. TK. Suddenly, he felt something hit his forearm. When he rolled his eyes to the side, he saw Yun Seora leaning on his shoulder with her eyes closed. Miss Yun Seora. When he moved his arm out of the way, she fell and ended up with her head on his lap. When he nudged her to wake her up, Yun Seora grabbed his hand abruptly and covered her eyes with it. MMNN. She whimpered softly, seemingly content. He wasn't sure if she was doing this in her sleep, but he was taken aback by how bold she was acting. Sial Jihunim? At that moment, the driver called his name. You enjoy driving around at night? Sial Jihu blinked repeatedly at his seemingly random question. I know a good place to drive around at this time of night. Watching the night scenery while driving slowly brings a whole new meaning to life. You won't regret it. When Sial Jihu kept staring at him in a daze, the man let out a bitter smile. It's been a while since young lady didn't throw a. No, it's been a while since she fell asleep peacefully, so please. Only then did Sial Jihu understand what he meant. Are you related to that place? Of course. I'd be happy to so long as I have someone to talk to. I will duly oblige. The man changed course and asked with a grin. I'm asking just out of concern, but you don't happen to swing that way, would you? I'll get off. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. The two men laughed wordlessly. Sial Jihu made a new friend. To be honest, her social standing was too high for him to consider her a friend, but he decided not to think about all that. What mattered was that they shared a secret they couldn't tell others about. The biggest change in Sial Jihu's life was that he started to look at his phone more often. In the past, never mind looking at it, he hated having it with him. More often than not, he had his phone off and refused to look at it. But after he made a friend from paradise, he began to carry his phone with him. Currently, he was reading a martial arts book about Chi circulation. From what he could tell, the concept of Chi was extremely similar to mana. Chi circulation refers to the movement of internal energy along one's meridians. It soothes the mind and the heart, while also. He was studying arduously when a light flickered on his phone screen. A message was shown on his notification bar. He unlocked his phone with a smile. It was great seeing how you gobbled them up so voraciously. I'm glad you liked them. It hasn't been long since they last exchanged messages, yet another one came. Ever since Ainz Audioverse messaged him in the morning, the periodic messages have been going back and forth non-stop. I'm going to need a chance to redeem myself. What do you like? I'm fine with anything. I'm not really a picky eater, fine with anything. That was the trickiest type to deal with. Sealjihu tapped on the phone's keyboard with a blooming smile on his face. Anything? I've never heard of a dish like that. It doesn't show up on the internet either. Seeing Ainz Audioverse's reply, he laughed in his heart. I'm kidding. There's actually something I really like. I want to treat you to it. Really? What is it? Have you tried Kwangdong's Sangwatang from the convenience store? If you put it in the microwave and drink it when it's warm, it's really good for relaxing your body. I hate you. Haha, I'm just joking. Anyways, give it a thought and let me know. It's fine even if it's expensive. After the brief conversation, Sealjihu went back to studying while being satisfied with his own jokes. Now that he thought about it, it had been a long time since he last laughed so hard on Earth. Of course, that didn't mean his desire to go back to paradise lessened. In fact, this desire grew stronger every time he made progress in his studies. After all, he still had no one around him on Earth. Kim Hannah was busy with work, and he couldn't just text Ainz Audioverse all day. The sense of loneliness and isolation was especially great after chatting and laughing with Ainz Audioverse. The feeling of solitude and bitterness that visited him before sleep was unbearably painful. Once he was reminded of these feelings, Sealjihu quickened his pace. The earlier he finished studying, the earlier he could return to paradise. SSK, his writing speed hastened. Let's go back. Exactly 10 days had passed since Sealjihu's return to Earth. Kim Hannah was surprised by how long he stayed on Earth and quickly permitted him to go. She emphasized that he was going to paradise, not returning, but Sealjihu didn't care either way. Perhaps because of Ainz Audioverse, he was a bit more at ease compared to last time when he was practically chased away to paradise. 6 packs of cigarettes, sandbags, toiletry, clothes, sneakers, notebook. After packing everything he wanted to bring into a large shopping bag, he took out a small, palm-sized piece of paper. Suddenly, he spotted his phone, which was connected to the charger. Ainz Audioverse had not contacted him since that day. After staring at it for a moment, Sealjihu ripped the paper in half without hesitation. Whack. Along with a ripping sound, brilliant light filled his vision. He finally returned to paradise. After leaving the temple, Sealjihu stretched hard and watched countless earthlings going in and out of the temple. Once his eyes turned to the dilapidated buildings of the city, vitality slowly emerged in his eyes. Like its nickname, Crime City, Haramark was messy and decadent. However, it was also filled with a mysterious vigor and an electrifying virility. The heaviness suppressing his chest slowly disappeared. With light steps, Sealjihu hopped down the stairs to the temple. As he looked around the city in excitement, he noticed something strange. The overall atmosphere of the city was rather grave. Rather than somber or dark, it was the opposite. Almost as if an incredibly elastic spring was pushed down to the limit, a current of excitement waiting to erupt filled the air. Did something happen? Sealjihu found a small group of people muttering about something with a serious face. He couldn't help but feel a little excited. He brought his animated body to Carp Diem's building, but the office was completely empty. There wasn't any trace of anyone having visited it either. Are they not here yet? The difference in time between Earth and Paradise was 1 to 3. In other words, the 10 days he spent on Earth was equivalent to 30 days in Paradise. He thought he would have been the last one to come, so no one being here was quite a surprise. "I'm sure they'll be here soon." He unpacked his things and took out a cigarette. After plopping down on the couch, he blew out a puff of smoke. Now that he was home, he felt alive. Of course, he had no intention of just sitting around and doing nothing. He did not spend 10 days on Earth just to relax in paradise. Sial Jihu fell in thought as he continued smoking. He thought back to what Dylan said, that an expedition or an exploration wasn't over just because one came back. That one could only get stronger by reflecting on even the tiniest details and putting in the effort to decrease future mistakes. Since Sial Jihu fully agreed with this sentiment, he slowly reminisced about the previous incident. Not long afterwards, a bitter smile surfaced on his face. No matter how much he thought about it, he could only thank Lady Luck for helping him escape, destroying the laboratory and making it to the Forest of Denial. It was all thanks to the Federation's secret weapon, thunder, and their members' ability to fly. Managing to survive after the parasites caught up? That was thanks to the Forest of Denial's ghost Saintess. Of course, it wasn't that he contributed nothing. But what if this didn't happen? What if that didn't happen? Once he eliminated the elements of coincidence, he could see the reality crystal clear. If he were alone, he never would have made it back alive. In truth, that was something he didn't even need to think about. He had already thought the same thing over and over again during his escape. If I was stronger, if only I had more strength. I can't keep going being drunk on my accomplishments in the neutral zone. Although he was the top dog among the newbies of the neutral zone, that no longer mattered once he was in paradise. He could simply go outside now and find a random passerby who was stronger than him. Just like Cynthia said, the difference between the two areas was the same as heaven and earth. In the end, there was only one conclusion: I need to get stronger. Then what did he need to do to get stronger? Sial Jihu's eyes flickered with light. He clenched his fists and raised them up high. It's time for some real training. Chapter 98. Great fortune within hardship, too. Whether it be studying or training, just putting in effort wasn't enough. To put it bluntly, one had to put in effort well. Knowing their weaknesses, knowing what to do, knowing how to distribute their time efficiently. One had to get their priorities straight for systematic training to be possible, and for that training to be efficient. Thus, Sial Jihu decided to first reaffirm his current potential. And to do that, he needed to visit a temple to check whether he could level up. Although he wasn't sure, he felt like the previous rescue mission had earned him enough merit to level up. But disregarding everything else, was it right to level up in his current situation? Most people would be ecstatic to do so, and to be frank, Sial Jihu was no different. There were moments in the past when he was thirsty for levels. But this thought changed as time passed and he joined Carpe Diem. In truth, this problem had to do with the unique circumstance he was in. Excluding external factors, there were two benefits an Earthling received by leveling up the stat points and the ability to acquire new skills. However, Sial Jihu put restrictions on these benefits to achieve success himself. Going from level 2 to level 3 would give him 3 stat points. But since he vowed to increase his stats only through training until he became a high ranker, this benefit was irrelevant. He could acquire class abilities that became available after leveling up, but he promised Agnes that he would not learn them by using his contribution points. In other words, leveling up would not give him a boost in power. Plus, Sial Jihu had yet to learn any of his level 2 skills. This was the biggest factor in why he hesitated to go to the temple. I understand why you're amassing your stat points, but skills are a different story. If you're not using your points and not learning new skills, what's the point in leveling up? Hannah pointed out his problem perfectly. Of course, becoming level 3 wouldn't pose any problems, but it's not normal. He was afraid. Never mind the class abilities, he feared that his physical stats would remain the same with only his level going up. In the worst-case scenario, he might end up achieving only a third of his maximum potential. Don't be rash. As such, Sial Jihu decided to add another restriction to not visit the temple until he learned his class abilities and could use them proficiently. In other words, he would wait until he mastered mana spear and mana circulation before seeing Gyola again. He didn't regret his decision. In fact, he considered this moment the perfect opportunity. Since neither Cho-hong and Hugo had returned, now was the only time he could focus on training. Let's start right away. Like the saying, strike the iron while it's hot. Now that he made up his mind about focusing on training, he immediately got up from his seat. You know the origins of javelin throwing? That was what Agnes asked him. Although he nodded his head at the time, he didn't fully understand her in his head. He acknowledged that he needed to learn the correct postures and techniques, but was there a need for him to learn its history? Seol Jihu realized why this was necessary during his studying of mana circulation. To be more precise, he arrived at the answer after asking himself, what is the difference between mana application and mana circulation? If it was just moving his mana, he could do it even now. But mana circulation was one of the skills revealed when he reached level 2. There had to be a difference. One thing he could be sure of was that mana circulation had something to do with training the mana rather than the body. As for the details, he had to figure it out starting from now. He sat cross-legged in a quiet room and closed his eyes. First, he breathed through his lower core. He forgot about breathing through his nose and only breathed in and out using the inner core of his lower stomach. Take a deep breath, then slowly let it out. He began to move his mana while focusing on his breathing. From the sauce receptacle to the celestial chimney, from the celestial chimney to the chest center, from the chest center to the turtle dove tail, from the turtle dove tail to the central venter, from the top of his head to his neck, from his neck to his chest, from his chest to his abdominal region, from his abdominal region to his perineum, following the concept vessel meridians and the governing vessel meridians, circulating the internal energy as if to create a whirlpool in your body. His mana moved inside him like flowing water following an irrigation channel. Not long afterward, he noticed a few oddities. The first was that the mana circuit was indeed similar, if not the same, as the Kai pathways. I didn't feel anything blocking the movement. After he started circulating his mana around his body, it flowed smoothly and rushed to its destinations without ever coming to a halt. Different people possessed different amounts of mana. Likewise, their mana circuits were unique. How wide, numerous, elastic, and tough their circuits were was determined by their innate talent and training. If a level 1 warrior's circuit was like a straw, then a level 5 magician's circuit was like an intricate spiderweb. However, the mana circuit Seol Jihu observed in his body was like the map of a subway system. It was normal for 1 or 2 pathways to be blocked, but never mind the pathways he frequently used. Even the pathways in the remote corners of his body were pierced clean. Saikai's tears. It was at this moment that he remembered Saikai's tears, the miraculous item that eliminated the body's impurities and strengthened it exponentially. As expected of the item that ate up hundreds of thousands of survival points, it had duly done its job. That wasn't all. What truly surprised the youth was something else. The speed, no, even the mana. As he continued circulating his mana, its speed rose drastically. Although he looked fine from the outside, a fierce gale strong enough to sweep away his consciousness was blowing inside him. What's going on? Once he observed his body more carefully, he could figure out the cause. Energy was bubbling up from every vein in his body. The energy his body was unable to digest, and had thus stored away, was reacting to his mana circulation. Was this what it felt like to suck in water with a vacuum cleaner? Seol Jihu felt the energy hidden in nooks and crannies of his body seep out and join the flowing mana. This was, of course, a whole new experience for him. For now he held onto his consciousness, and like a starving shark seeing a school of fish, he concentrated on controlling the wild energy. It almost felt like his mana was complaining why he started circulating it so late. How much time went by? After barely managing to suppress the roiling energy inside him, he was able to confirm that the strange phenomenon wasn't his imagination. His lower belly feeling heavy was a telltale proof of it. My mana increased. Although it might be minuscule, the amount of mana he had indeed went up. Mana circulation can increase the amount of mana in your body. He tilted his head and pondered for a long time before eventually deciding not to worry about it. No matter the case, it wasn't a bad thing for him. When he opened his eyes, he finally let out the breath he was holding in. Hua! He only now realized that he was soaked in sweat. His body was also burning hot, and his breathing was rough. So this is what it feels like. He remembered reading about Kai circulation from novels and manhwa, but experiencing personally made him see it a new light. His body felt light and his mind felt refreshed. He was more relaxed than ever before, almost like he just left the most luxurious sauna. If I feel the same way every time, I might get addicted to it. Jihu wiped off the sweat dripping from his forehead. It was then that he saw several messages in the air. The class ability, Mana Application, Intermediate, has evolved to Mana Circulation, Low. Your innate ability, Future Vision, is responding to the creation of a new ability. The class ability, Mana Circulation, Low, evolves to Mana Circulation, High Intermediate. Please confirm your status window. When? I didn't hear any alerts. It seemed like they popped up while he was in that transient state of having no thoughts and ideas. Wow. After reading the messages with an entranced look, he spread his arms out in an expression of joy. He had finally learned one of the 2 Level 2 class abilities. Although Future Vision and Saikai's tears played a huge role, it was a good start nonetheless. I feel like a martial artist or something. With a bright smile, Jihu went back to circulating his mana. Jihu prioritized obtaining his class abilities, but that didn't mean he was lax in training his physique. Since he was leveling up at an unprecedented rate, he also wanted to bring his physical body up to par. As such, just like in the past, he spent most of his morning training his body. His day started with running around Haramark. Since the day Yisiala taught him the joy of running, he never skipped his morning run except under inevitable circumstances like being injured or participating in an expedition. Hoo ha. With new sneakers and new workout clothes, he was running through the streets of Haramark while breathing regularly when his eyes suddenly opened wide. A familiar face was walking toward him from the other side. Carrying a large paper bag filled with bread and vegetable, the woman wearing a maid outfit was. Miss Agnes? Jihu slowed down as he waved his hand happily. The sharp-eyed, bespectacled woman passed by him indifferently with only a glance. However, the youth chased after her like a duckling that met its mother. Who? Agnes let out a soft sigh and paused. Didn't I tell you not to get sidetracked while you're training? She chastised him in a serious tone, but... Miss Agnes, I did it. Jihu rambled on. I learned mana circulation. That was unexpected. However, Agnes quickly regained her calm. She had already experienced this youth's irregularities several times in the neutral zone. Him learning mana circulation was nothing to be surprised about now. It was undoubtedly a cause for a celebration, but Agnes was the type of person who rarely praised someone. Her teaching style dictated that she set a new goal for her disciples rather than praising them and making them arrogant. Agnes fixed her grip on the paper bag and opened her mouth. From now, you should be able to train your mana too. I recommend practicing mana circulation for at least 4 hours every day. For 4 hours? Why are you surprised? Agnes snorted. Your mana and mana circuit should be like an iron ore mixed with impurities. You need to constantly refine it in order to increase its purity. As I'm sure you know, mana becomes stronger the purer it is. Jihu nodded. Now that he experienced mana circulation, he understood what she meant. Mana circulation might seem like a simple ability, but it has the effect of strengthening your circuit and even purifying your mana. There is no reason not to invest your time in it. It makes sense if you put it that way. Since it also increases the amount of mana in your body, I guess I should really make it my main training method. Pardon? Agnes's eyebrows twitched. What did you just say? That I'd make it my main training method. No, before that. That it increases the amount of mana in your body. Is that what happened to you? Yes, though it wasn't much. Jihu raised his hand and formed a fist to give her an idea of how much it increased by. However, Agnes looked confused. That can't be. To my knowledge, mana circulation doesn't have the effect of increasing your total pool of mana. Huh? But, the youth argued and said he wasn't lying. Agnes had a rare, concerned look on her face. I doubt you raised it with your stat points. I know of a few instances where someone's total mana pool increased after risking his circuit and squeezing out every ounce of mana, but... Agnes muttered to herself before asking half in doubt, "Does your mana increase every time you practice mana circulation?" No, it went up for the first 3-4 days but stopped going up afterward. Agnes finally understood. It must be the effect of consuming precious medicine. Medicine. Yes, when someone consumes a precious herb or medicine, he is usually unable to absorb all of its energy, causing it to get stored in parts of his body. And when he practices mana circulation, his body will absorb that indigested energy. But I don't remember eating anything like that. Think about it carefully. Jihu fell in thought, but soon he shook his head. No matter how much he scanned his memories, he had not even seen a precious medicine, much less eaten one. I ate something called a dulse while I was being chased. Dulse isn't a medicine. It's one of the most flavorless fruits in paradise. Oh. Unless someone is desperate or is on the verge of starving to death, no one will eat such a thing. Agnes raised her glasses and continued. Anyways, you might not understand the cause, but it's not a bad thing. First, raise your mana circulation rank to intermediate. When it evolved from mana application, its rank should have dropped as well. The youth stared at her fixedly. Although it fell to low when it first evolved, future vision had quickly changed it to high intermediate. Once you reach level 4, mana circulation can be evolved again. It's called mana cultivation. Mana cultivation? An ability isn't something you learn once and forget about. Agnes continued. Mana application becomes mana circulation. Mana circulation becomes mana cultivation. Mana cultivation becomes mana technique. So mana circulation will evolve to mana cultivation next. Agnes paused for a moment. Of course, it's best to learn it directly with your own understanding. She continued only after a certain amount of time went by. But with mana cultivation, I recommend you use your contribution points to evolve it. You want me to learn them with my contribution points? Not learn, evolve. Agnes denied it immediately. Although there was a difference in the meaning behind the two words learn and evolve, Jihu looked confused about such a minute difference. Agnes explained slowly. Mana application and mana circulation are fundamental skills. Because of this, they are fairly easy for an average person to acquire, but starting from mana cultivation, the difficulty skyrockets. Right, I guess it'll be hard to find a cultivation manual for something like that. Right. Even if you find an ultimate mana technique through all sorts of hardship, it will be useless if you can't learn it. Even a genius needs dozens of years to master such techniques, but an average person might not even be able to stand on the starting line after hundreds of years. You mean it's a matter of efficiency? Yes. If it seems too difficult, you need to be decisive in giving up. You can be more than happy with having learned mana application and mana circulation on your own. Since the gods' divine providence gave this world a game-like system, there is nothing wrong with making use of it. Jihu thought for a moment before opening his mouth. So it'll be important to learn the fundamentals of any ability on your own. A thin smile emerged on Agnes's face. The youth had pointed out the core of the matter. She was worried he might get obstinate, but she was happy seeing how intelligent her disciple was. You're absolutely right. What matters is knowing the fundamentals. No matter what the ability is, it's important to master its fundamentals. That is one thing you cannot yield. Jihu nodded his head in agreement before asking again. How far did you get, Miss Agnes? If you're talking about the use of mana, I learned up to mana cultivation on my own. Agnes revealed a coy look. I managed to find a mana technique, but it was too complicated. It simply wasn't something I could learn on my own, so I chose to use my contribution points. She smacked her lips as if it wasn't a good memory. Anyways, that is still far off for you. Take your time to think about mana cultivation. And like I always say, when you're training, focus only on training. Having learned new knowledge, Jihu nodded his head with a bright smile. Something Agnes didn't know was that his mana circulation had already surpassed intermediate rank. In other words, he could learn mana cultivation as soon as he reached level 4. Of course, he would need to wait and see to know if he would learn it on his own or acquire it with contribution points, but just the fact that he had a new goal made his heart race. She helped me again. He was grateful that he had someone to explain things to him in such detail. After staring at her fixedly, Cial grinned happily. Agnes's eyebrows twitched at that moment, but when he tried to talk without having realized it. Thank, cuck, thwack, his back bent over. From his stomach, a surge of pain spread through his body. He couldn't even see her fist. He felt wronged, thinking he did nothing to deserve this. Why, are you really asking me that? Agnes glared at him with icy eyes. I just wanted to thank you for the advice. Oh, really? I'm sorry. HMPH. Agnes snorted and turned around. That was too much. When she heard the youth's mumbling, she suddenly erupted in anger. Too much? That was too much. Did he light her fuse? Agnes went past being hysterical, grabbing him by the collar and beginning to shake him around. Too much? Can you say that after looking at this? Claire Agnes's status window, 1, general information, summon date, 2013. 09. 20 marking grade, silver, sex/age, female/27, height/weight, 172.4 cm/60.8 kg, current condition, healthy, class, LV6. Evil hunting tarantula. Nationality, Europe Area 2. Affiliation, Cecilia, alias. Miss Teddy Bear, Ground Zero, Cecilia's bitch, Cecilia's demonic instructor, cold-faced supermaid who secretly loves cute underwear, Haramark's slaughterer supermaid. Who are you calling a supermaid? Tell me, tell me. She shook him around in a craze. When Cialjihu saw the alias she revealed, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. You ha ha ha. Once Agnes heard his laughter, her complexion froze. You think this is funny? Wait. You think it's funny adding this shit to my alias? C-com, ack. He didn't even say a word about Miss Teddy Bear, but ended up being beaten to a pulp regardless. That was it for the boy who cried wolf. Hugh. Although he was beaten severely, he wasn't dead. He was sore all over his body, but he still finished up his morning run before staggering back to the Carp Diem office. He couldn't bring himself to start weight training, so he pulled himself upstairs to rest. Just as he was about to open the third-floor door, he discovered an unfamiliar piece of paper stuck between the door. A letter. He took the paper out and opened the folded letter. Chapter 99. The Threads of Bonds Coming Together. The letter was written in characters he had never seen before, but the words soon wiggled around and transformed into Korean. There were times when synchronization took a second or two to happen, so Cialjihu didn't find it too surprising. I heard from the temple that you came back. You didn't pick up when I called you, so I'm leaving you this message. You remember our promise, right? Come to my place tonight for dinner. A look of surprise and joy flashed in Cialjihu's face. The tone of the letter was light, almost like someone inviting their neighbor to catch up over dinner. The problem was that the sender was Teresa Hussey. In other words, he would need to go to the royal palace and potentially meet the king. The Haramark royal family was famous for abandoning formalities after their conflict with Earthlings, but the word royal palace carried weight in Cialjihu's head. Even though the letter said to come comfortably, there was an invisible pressure weighing down on him as an average person going to a palace. However, for Teresa's sake, he couldn't skip out, and to be honest, he kind of wanted to go as well. Cialjihu read the letter until the end. When he read the final 2 lines, P.S., don't go back after dinner. Come hit up a special dessert with me so we can digest what we ate heart suit. A chuckle escaped his mouth. Good thing I brought something nice to wear. It was an invitation from the royal palace. Not wanting to embarrass himself by acting like a fool, Cialjihu headed to the library to study basic decorum. After finishing up his afternoon training early, Cialjihu washed himself clean. Since he didn't know what would happen at the palace, he filled his belly up a tiny bit too. At the very least, he wanted to avoid eating mindlessly like that time he ate with Yun Seora. He changed into the clothes he picked out beforehand. As soon as he looked at himself in the mirror and thought, good, perfect, something unexpected happened. He was about to head out, but a giant man was standing in front of the door. Of course, it wasn't all that surprising for Carp Diem's office to have visitors, but... "Are you the earthling known as Sial?" His well-toned muscles were protruding out from his 2-meter-tall figure, and a long scar from a blade stretched across his nose. Just looking at his appearance, he didn't seem like he would lose fighting an orc one-on-one. "I'm Jan Sanctus. I've come to escort you under Princess Teresa's orders." He had a tough voice befitting his intimidating appearance. Hearing that the princess sent him, Sial Jihu put down the spear he subconsciously raised up. "Will you come?" he asked, rather bluntly. Sial Jihu regained his composure and answered, "Of course. Follow me, I will guide you." Just like that, Sial Jihu followed Jan Sanctus and entered the premises of the Haramark royal palace. Everyone's so busy. It was dinner time, yet the palace seemed very busy. He could often see people running about in a haste and others who were urgently shouting at a communication crystal. The atmosphere was completely different compared to the city. By walking through the palace gate, he felt like he entered a whole new world. Who would have thought so much is going on behind the wall? Haramark was well known for having a strong local color, even with the presence of a royal family. But as expected of the home of a king, it had all the right appearances befitting a palace. Sial Jihu asked quietly while walking through a long corridor, "Is there anything I need to watch out for in the palace?" Although he already looked up Paradise's decorum in the library, he still asked just to be sure. "No." Jan Sanctus returned a brusque answer. Rather than hostile, he seemed to be cold naturally. "You just have to not point your weapons at them or curse them out. Doesn't that go without saying? All I'm saying is that you only have to keep basic manners." Jan Sanctus looked back at the youth. "Earthlings aren't like us." My lord acknowledged and accepted the difference in culture between Earth and Paradise. "As long as you keep basic manners that anyone would know, there won't be any problems." They arrived at the entrance after a brief conversation. Apparently, when the Haramark Palace was being constructed, an emphasis was placed on aspects of communal life rather than functionalities, war or solitary living. Jan Sanctus left once he guided Sial Jihu to the Grand Hall. Once Sial Jihu went inside, he was able to see a young woman wearing a pink dress, as well as a middle-aged man sitting on a throne being attended by 2 maids. Teresa gave a beaming smile when she saw the youth, but his attention was somewhere else. He met the middle-aged man's calm eyes that also seemed to carry a spark of fire. Unlike Teresa, he had blonde hair and beard, which was groomed neatly. Prihai Hussey, the king of Haramark, one of the 7 kingdoms that survived the foreign race's invasion. "Are you the earthling named Sial?" A clear voice resounded. His willowy appearance made him look more like a scholar than a warrior. "There's no need." When Sial Jihu tried to get on his knees, the king immediately stopped him. "On Earth, I heard that people are the owners of a nation, while the king exists to serve the people. I respect their culture." Sial Jihu was surprised by his humble manner of speech. He obediently got up. "It is my honor, your majesty." When he spoke with a slight bow, Prihai chuckled. "Your honor, huh? I understand what you mean by that, but it's fine. Think of me as a village head, or if even that is not enough to make you comfortable, think of me as whatever you'd like." The word whatever was quite a tricky one. He felt like he was just told, put however much salt you want in cooking. Prihai Hussey calmly stared at the youth before opening his mouth. "First, I would like to express my gratitude for your deeds. I've heard what you have done for this world. You're too kind." From the way he talked, it seemed he was aware of his position as a king. Sial Jihu was quite glad to learn this, as he was somewhat worried the king might act like a backstreet hoodlum like his daughter. "I would also like to thank you for responding to our summons. You see, my daughter kept pestering me about wanting to meet you." He made it sound like Teresa forced him. Prihai used both hands to slowly push himself off of his throne. "Then let us go." "Pardon? We invited you under the pretext of a dinner. How could we let our guest starve while talking about boring things?" He talked somewhat jokingly as he waved his hand around. When Sial Jihu gazed at him dazedly, Teresa skipped over to him. "Heh, aren't you too tense?" Sial Jihu rubbed his face. His facial muscles indeed felt a little tighter than usual. "You don't need to be so formal, just relax. We're just going to chit-chat while we eat." For some reason, Teresa's eyes seemed to be sparkling with anticipation. She carefully grabbed his arm as if to link arms. "Let's go." He wouldn't describe the food as delicacies, but all sorts of appetizing dishes were placed on top of a long table with a white tablecloth. Prehai asked a few questions that had nothing to do with the state of affairs. But because Sial Jihu was too busy paying attention to the way he talked, he had no clue what food he was stuffing into his mouth. Of course, he thought he was doing a pretty good job, but Teresa only smiled wryly. As someone who once ruled the high society filled with shameless scheming and secret strife, she was immediately able to tell that the young man in front of her was paying too much attention to being courteous. There was no need to even mention Prehai. "Looks like our hero doesn't find the food to his liking." "No, they're excellent," Sial Jihu immediately refuted, but Prehai continued without batting an eye. "It looks like I'll have to do something about it. As the one who invited you, I have the duty to help you relax. Let's see." Why don't we talk about something?" Prehai spoke as if he just remembered something. "Have you heard of the past conflict between Earthlings and the Haramark royal family?" Prehai said he would help the young man relax, but the topic he brought up made him tense up more. Sial Jihu opened his mouth. "If you are talking about the revolt, I have indeed heard about it." "Right. Let's skip the details and talk about the outcome." Sinyang helped create a room for negotiation between the two groups. "You see, since it was meant to be a place of reconciliation, I thought they would at least keep the minimal decorum." "Did something happen?" "Yes, I've never experienced such disrespect before. Rather than sending the ringleader of the revolt, they sent some bastard I've never seen. Still, I revealed my identity out of courtesy first, and when I asked for his name, this is what he said: 'Nice to meet you, Haramark's king.'" Seeing Sial Jihu's confused look, Prehai cleared his throat before continuing. "My name is Prehai's belly, king-sized belly. PFT. Cough." When Sial Jihu coughed and looked up, he saw Prehai calmly slicing his steak. He didn't seem to be joking. Did that really happen? I'm not talented enough to make up such stories. The people who know this story are too many to count. There's a live witness right here. When Prehai looked at Teresa, she immediately nodded her head. He's right. It was so shocking that I still remember it clearly. "I can't believe." "That's not all. The bitch sitting next to that bastard went a step further and said this with a smirk. 'Nice to meet you. My name is Teresa Pink.'" "Princess," Sialju quickly cut her off. However, Teresa wasn't fazed in the slightest. "Just listen, the pink part doesn't matter all that much." So after saying that, "Princess?" Sial Jihu's voice went up. Teresa shrugged her shoulders, while Sial Jihu massaged his temples and asked the king, "You stayed silent, Your Majesty?" The man insisted his name was Prehai's belly, while his surname was king-sized belly. Once he got angry and asked if we were making fun of the name he received from his parents, there wasn't much we could say. "What a bunch of psychopaths." "I agree, they're a bunch of lunatics," Prehai agreed with dignity. But that's when I began to realize how the Earthlings thought of this world. A fun game, nothing more, nothing less. He suddenly rubbed his beard. "Well, we got to learn an important piece of info because of it." "By that, you mean?" Prehai continued. "We found out they had a spy in the palace." Hearing this, Sial Jihu fell in thought. The king found out there was a spy because of the rude man making up such an absurd name. That was hard to understand. Why did you think so? Think about it. If they didn't have a spy in the palace, they would not have known about our physical traits so clearly. Prehai said in a firm tone. "He's right. Since they were able to acquire information about our private regions, the spy must have been fairly close to us." Teresa added bashfully. Sial Jihu gave up on thinking. "We were angry, but we laughed and let it slide. We refused to give in to such an obvious provocation." "I see. That must have been tough." "It certainly wasn't easy, but this is quite a surprise. The Earthlings I've met so far giggled whenever I told them this story." "My apologies. I do not believe it's a laughing matter." Sial Jihu was straightforward. Prehai stared at him fixedly. "You don't need to apologize." Just when it was looking like the conversation was coming to an end. "Oh yes, I heard you slept with my daughter." The king's sudden question made Sial Jihu calmly spat out the water he was drinking. He thought that was certainly better than spraying it everywhere. Your Majesty. What's up with that sour look, from what Teresa told me? Sial Jihu quickly turned to Teresa. She was acting embarrassed with her hands over her cheeks. Why is she blushing? No, why is she pretending to be coy all of a sudden? When he stared at her intently, Teresa shook her head. Gee's father say we shared a bed. Sleeping, that's too candid. What are you talking about? I understand the phrasing was a bit explicit, but you're the one who told me to. Suddenly, the end of his speech blurred. Prihai dropped his head and groaned, but Teresa played with her steak knife as if nothing happened. That hurt. Ho, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I should have known from when you put on a dress for the first time in 8 years. I told you to say it jokingly to help him relax. Who told you to say it so bluntly? Ah, how embarrassing. Words Sial Jihu couldn't understand went back and forth. What did I expect? He smacked his lips. He experienced it when he met the princess for the first time, but they were quite an extraordinary father and daughter duo. I apologize for the unsightly behavior. Prihai sighed and brought a piece of cloth to wipe his mouth. Anyways, there's no need to be so tense. This isn't a place for punishment or arrest. Rather, it is a place to grant awards befitting one's achievements. The king spoke in somewhat of a heavy tone. Sialju wanted to tell him it was too late to act dignified, but what actually came out of his mouth was, "Thank you for your kindness." At first, I thought the rumors were exaggerated. Prihai spoke as he put down his napkin. But since Teresa said the same thing, I had no choice but to believe it. I'm not so doubtful as to not trust the words of my own blood. I'm humbled, Your Majesty. Can you stop with that way of talking, please? Pardon? I got used to the Earthling's culture after years of painstaking effort. Trying to match the proprieties of my position is only confusing me. In paradise, the concept of nobility was faint. Even if one looked to find one, they would only come up with a lord in charge of a large town. Even then, the lord would be close to a village head. Furthermore, many paradisians had either died in the long war or escaped their birthplace to survive. So this is why. Sial Jihu began to understand why the Haramark royal family abandoned formalities. He spoke quietly. Got it. The dinner ended quietly. The maids cleaned up the table and brought out tea. After enjoying a sip, Prihai put his cup down before opening his mouth. The Haramark royal family is always fair when it comes to rewards and punishments. Your achievements. Yes, you saved the Raman village, came up with the plan for the rescue operation, and helped greatly in the rescue and the subsequent destruction of the laboratory. Hearing Prihai's words, Sial Jihu felt an unknown sense of incongruity. The way he was listing out his achievements, how should he say this? Rather than for praising him, it felt like it was for a clear payout. Prihai ruined the mood by throwing in jokes here and there, but for some unknown reason, the king looked like someone who had given up since the first time they met. After much deliberation on rewards befitting your achievements, I came to a conclusion. When talk of his reward came up, Sial Jihu's ears perked up. I truly hope you like it. Despite saying this, Prihai sounded confident that Sial Jihu would love it. He gestured at his maid, who promptly returned with a plate covered by a white cloth. Sial Jihu's eyes opened wide. This is... A quiet moan escaped his mouth. Sitting on the plate was a rectangular, shining bar of pure gold that emitted a reddish light. Sial Jihu was entranced by its beauty, yet he couldn't keep his eyes open properly. A gold bar. Considering how jealous Chohong and Hugo were of a pinky-sized piece of gold, a whole gold bar was well beyond his imaginations. Gulp. He swallowed hard, and his Adam's apple twitched. On Earth, the power of money was absolute. Although paradise was currently in a state of war, the value of gold shouldn't be any less. With this, it would be quicker to count the things he couldn't do rather than counting what he could do. Greed slowly rose from the young man's eyes. At that moment, a thought crossed his mind. Ah. Sial Jihu suddenly closed his mouth. His ecstatic expression disappeared, replaced by a frown. He stared at the gold bar with a complicated expression. This item is extremely easy to convert to Earth's currency. In terms of gold coins, I believe it should be HM. Prihai stopped when he looked at the young man. Do you not like the reward? Pardon? Ah, no. Sial Jihu shook his head vigorously as if the notion was absurd. You don't look satisfied. No, it's not that. Then what? If there is something you want, then speak without reserve. Hearing Prihai's benevolent voice, Sial Jihu stared at the gold bar conflictingly and nibbled on his lower lip. We don't have a place to go. We're not living outside the city because we like it. There was the village head who gave his precious rudium to make a foothold for the rescue mission's success. But couldn't he be satisfied with buying food and sending it to the village? Come again. There was the ghost saintess who saved his life and became the gift-giving tree. But. After much internal conflict, he activated 9 eyes instinctively. When he saw the gold bar, his face contorted and he went, ah, soon. Sial Jihu let out a deep sigh. He then opened his mouth, a bit calmer than before. There's something I need to tell you. Chapter 100. The threads of bonds coming together, too. What is it? Also, I have a couple of favors I'd like to ask you. Prihai stared at Sial Jihu, who suddenly turned serious. What was the youth trying to say? I'll listen to the favors first. Can you prepare a new habitable land in Haramark using this gold bar? Land. Prihai's tone went up, and his usually calm eyes narrowed slightly. It was as if he heard something completely unexpected. Sial Jihu continued without a pause. In addition, please lend me Master Ian. Ian Denzel. Prihai's eyes clearly narrowed to a slit, his expression forming a frown. Ian Denzel was a magician affiliated with the royal family and one of the few earthlings Prihai trusted. There was no need to even mention the value of a magician. He might understand if the youth gave a good reason, but he didn't feel good being told to lend him out of the blue. Father. When Teresa tried to step in, Prihai raised his hand to stop her. Is this related to what you wanted to tell me? Yes. Prihai gave the young man a deeply profound look. Seeing this gaze that seemed to be asking for an explanation, Sial Jihu opened his mouth. He told him about the village head of Raman village and the ghost saintess trapped in the forest of Denial's tomb. As the story continued, the king's indifferent expression changed to one of interest. I see. Prihai leaned forward, locked his fingers, and rested his chin on them. You want us to accept the villagers into the city? I heard that the castle has limited capacity, but I'd like to ask you if it is at all possible. To be frank, it is quite difficult. The castle is already at max capacity. A couple dozen might be acceptable, but accepting hundreds of villagers is a bit. Prihai sounded reluctant. Helping a large group migrate wasn't an easy task. If he simply allowed them into the city and forgot about them, they would only become homeless and displaced. If that were to happen, it was better to not accept them in the first place. Thus, granting Sial Jihu's request meant he would have to prepare them shelter as well as means of living. Your Majesty, you said that the royal family is fair in rewards and punishments. One is a retired old man living in seclusion, and the other is a soul. But I believe they have the right to be rewarded more than anyone else who participated in this mission. Seeing the king in thought, Sial Jihu pleaded earnestly. It is true that Raman village is in an awkward location. I won't deny that I thought it couldn't be helped. Prihai let out a deep sigh and nodded his head. This isn't a matter I can decide on easily. But with this gold bar, I can examine it favorably. Then, just as the youth rejoiced, but why? Prihai's eyes suddenly flashed. I want you to hear me out without misunderstanding me. Are you not an earthling, Your Majesty? I am not trying to discuss philosophy, nor am I trying to discuss right and wrong. It is just that you are an earthling. Prihai emphasized the last line. Setting aside the matter of the Forest of Denial, is there a need to do so much for Raman village? I don't doubt that you understood me, but I will be frank. The villagers will be ecstatic and grateful if you simply send them a supply of food. You will also have repaid your debt to the village head. It wasn't that Sial Jihu hadn't thought of this. A part of him wanted to put on airs and take the gold bar for himself. If it is weighing on your conscience, I shall tell you this. The current Haramark cannot afford to look after its people. I can easily decline your request of kindness given the circumstances we face. He was right. Pleading with the king only to be turned down because it was difficult. What better excuse was there? In other words, no one will criticize you for taking this gold. He was right again. Who would criticize him? All he had to do was keep his mouth shut. Moreover, he would become rich as long as he took this gold. You want to use this gold for a cause which will not benefit you. I can't help but be curious about your ulterior motive. Right, it wasn't that he was selfless. However, to him, there was something even more important than the gold in front of him. If he didn't look at the gold bar with his 9 eyes, he wouldn't have noticed it until the end. But he had seen it and come to a conclusion. There is nothing I'd call an ulterior motive. He could now say this without hesitation. I am only acting according to my rule. Rule? If you owe a debt, it is only natural to pay it back. An opportunity to do so has landed right in front of me. What reason do I have to not take it? Prihai looked dumbfounded. I do not understand you at all. You don't seem to be the type who likes to play with words. Sial Jihu almost answered, I do, actually, but he managed to stop himself from ruining the tension. He got to the main point. I call it the Golden Commandment. Golden Commandment? The ghost saintess and the village head. Both of them treated me well. I cannot shamelessly pretend the achievements were mine alone, and it is improper for me to compromise with myself when I am treating others. After all, doing so would be deceiving my benefactors. I would rather not treat them unless I do it to my fullest power. Your Majesty, if I cannot pay my debts to those two, I cannot expect them to treat me the same again. That is what I fear the most. When the youth looked up at the king after a long monologue, he saw the king blinking his eyes repeatedly. He looked as if he had taken a blow to his face. You cannot expect them to treat you the same again. A few minutes went by before the king decided to open his mouth again. Indeed. He leaned back on his chair and said as he massaged his nose, I am beginning to understand you better. Humans all have a limit to their vessel. The same goes for ghosts. A limit to their vessel. For some reason, that line touched him. He felt like it was the perfect summary of the Golden Commandment. Thank you for your understanding. I didn't give a clear answer yet, so I want to ask you one final question. Prihai asked in a soft voice, Is this truly what you want? Yes, Sial Jihu answered with hesitation. Rather than being uncomfortable, spending the gold this way made him feel 1,000 times better. Seeing the bright smile on the youth's face, Prihai made his decision. I see. So this is why you wanted me to meet him so much. He murmured to himself quietly so that Sial Jihu couldn't hear him. Then fine. Finally, the decision was announced. I, Prihai Hussey, hereby permit all villagers of Raman village to settle in the city. The gold bar rewarded to Sial Jihu shall be used to support them both materially and spiritually. A royal decree. Although his position no longer possessed the glory it once held, the weight it carried made it such that his decisions could not be flipped lightly. Furthermore, we shall partially support the appeasing of the pitiful soul trapped inside the forest of Denial's tomb. Partially support? What did that mean? He means he will raise the level and quality of the ceremony. Teresa whispered in his ear. Her status does not disappear just because she became a soul. Although it was hundreds of years ago, didn't you say she was canonized by the Empire? I mean to show her the appropriate level of respect. Sial Jihu's jaw dropped at Prihai's statement. He had been expecting a simple rite where she was offered food and someone to talk to. When he imagined how much the saintess would rejoice, a smile bloomed on his face. And seeing this satisfied smile, Prihai rested his chin on his hands. Pardon. We can finish discussing official work here. Why don't we continue what we were talking about before? Something small, if possible. Sial Jihu wasn't an idiot. He realized what the king was implying right away. Although he put a restriction of it having to be small, he was saying he wouldn't allow the young man to return empty-handed. Well. The king waited patiently, but Sial Jihu didn't know what to say. This truly meant that the youth did not want anything other than what he requested before. You can take your time. The night is long. After saying so with benevolence, I will have to get going. I'm not the type of person who likes to procrastinate. It will take a few days for us to come up with a solid plan. He picked up the gold bar and got up. Father, you're leaving. You should stay a little longer. Teresa muttered as if she was asking how he could leave a pair of healthy man and woman alone at night. Prihai looked dumbfounded. Ho ho, I have quite the vixen as my daughter. Don't say something you don't mean a tiny bit. The one who told me to look for an opportunity to leave was. He was mumbling with a wry chuckle. I came up with the perfect excuse to leave you two alone. How can you be so blind? Crack, crack, but he changed tune as soon as he heard the sound the bones cracking. Teresa, who was cracking her neck and knuckles, smiled brightly. Oh, this young lady misunderstood her father's intention. Please leave this to me and focus on state affairs. My, it's like I am entrusting a fish to a thieving cat. Did you say something? I'm going to risk my well-being and just say this. You can enter the storage, but don't touch anything from the royal treasury. Geez, don't be such a worrywart. Besides, it's not like the royal treasury deserves to be called that. Teresa grumbled, and Prihai smiled bitterly. I'm just telling you not to empty out the way of living. I know that a married daughter is no better than a stranger, but have some self-restraint. When your older sister got married, who do you think I am? I'm not like older sis. I'll leave the furniture and tableware at least. While saying that, Teresa stealthily avoided Prihai's gaze. By now, even a fool would realize what they were talking about, yet Sial Jihu was staring at them blankly with an innocent face. Prihai clicked his tongue. Really, both in this world and that world, heroes are quite the peculiar group of people. Maybe it isn't a matter of genes, but some sort of outside interference. He mumbled regrettably before saying his farewell. That was an interesting story and an enjoyable meeting. It was a time well spent. I'll take my leave so you can enjoy at ease. Sial Jihu didn't know what he meant by enjoying at ease, but he quickly got up as well. However, Prihai placed his hand on his shoulder as if such motion was unnecessary and spoke. Also. His clear eyes stared at the young man, and a gentle smile spread across his face. It was the first smile he was showing since their meeting. Teresa's eyes widened. Thank you for saving my daughter. At that moment, the sense of incongruity Sial Jihu had been subtly feeling disappeared instantly. Should he say the distance between them had shortened drastically? I'm humble, please. And no problem. With a chuckle, Prihai tapped on his shoulders twice before leaving. Well, that was a surprise. Teresa also chuckled, seemingly caught off guard by her father. It's been a while since I've seen father laugh. Does His Majesty not laugh often? Rather than that, Teresa was about to say something, but swallowed her words back down. She felt like it was something she didn't need to mention. Anyways, why don't we go somewhere cozy and finish talking about your reward? Oh, are we going to the storage? Geez, don't be in such a rush. Let's chat while we slowly eat some dessert. We have lots of time. Dessert Sial Jihu didn't have any reasons to refuse. He was nervous and full of tension while he was eating, so he could barely taste the food. Now that the talk had gone well and he was left with someone he was more comfortable around, his taste buds returned and were roaring to eat. He gulped. I'd love to try it. You can look forward to it. Once you taste it once, you'll never be able to forget it. After announcing this confidently, Teresa got up. All right, let's go. Where? My bedroom. We're not eating it here. It was a justified question given that they were in the dining room. Teresa giggled. This dessert has to be eaten in a secluded place, though eating it where you can be found out would give it a special flavor as well. The youth tilted his head. Teresa made an alluring smile and wagged the bait seductively. Come on, get up. Hurry, not anyone can eat this dessert, you know. Wow, it must be really precious. Teresa looked as if that was obvious. Of course it is. Father and mother only made one in the world. The king and the queen personally made it. What is it called? It's no fun if I tell you beforehand. Come on, tell me. Sial Jihu asked again, wondering how eating a dessert could be fun in the first place. HN_NG. Teresa licked her lips before staring at him coyly. Then she exclaimed, It's me. Sial Jihu refused vehemently, but when Teresa threatened to not give the reward, he bit the bullet and followed her to her bedroom. Thankfully, the dessert was a true delicacy. It was soft and flavorful, making him devour it eagerly, forgetting about saving face. He enjoyed eating Teresa hussy, and because the princess got happy seeing him eat so tastily, he was able to return with all sorts of additional rewards she gave. Who would have thought there was a dessert like that? There really was a dessert called Teresa hussy. It was a refreshing strawberry-flavored pink cake, Apparently, the king and the queen had personally made it for their youngest daughter, who was a helpless sweet tooth. The cake was then given Teresa's name as it was created on her birthday. That was great. He wanted to taste it again. Enjoying the cake's sweetness still lingering in his mouth, Sial Jihu returned to the office. It's a good thing I went. He felt like today was his lucky day. Not only did he pay back the debt he owed the village head, but he was also able to care for the ghost saintess. That wasn't all. Looking at the rewards he put on the office table, a feeling of satisfaction spread across his face. Although he didn't get to enter the nominal royal treasury, the items he received made him wonder if it was okay. First was a metallic mace called +2 thorn of steel. Crafted by refining a meteorite, it boasted hardness that was 10 times that of ordinary steel, and it was enchanted with magic that doubled its attack power when it successfully hit its target. Chohong should love it. He got it as a gift for Chohong, who was likely to become a high ranker soon. He could only imagine how giddy she would be. He also received a crucifix artifact. Although it wasn't as good as the proof of chastity, it was still an item that money couldn't buy. He was certain it would be an excellent bait to lure out Maria when he needed her. When he was about to leave the palace's storage room, thinking just these two were enough, Teresa told him to wait before bringing him a black belt. The belt was enchanted with a permanent pocket magic, allowing it to store 2 bags worth of items. The one thing that bothered him was how she carefully looked around the area while telling him to hide it on his way out. When he asked if he could really take it, Teresa immediately exclaimed that she didn't steal it from the royal treasury. As Sial Jihu trusted her wholeheartedly, he took it at ease. Finally, she handed him 500 silver coins, saying it was a small expression of gratitude. While he was happily looking at the items, he suddenly remembered the bracelet the ghost saintess gave him. He immediately took it out from his pocket. I wonder what effect it has. Since it was an item from the Empire, it was unlikely to be simple. Sial Jihu activated the 9 eyes color of general observation and gazed at the golden bracelet. Soon. Ha! His smiling eyes opened wide.